In every corner of the world, scattered across deserts, mountains, and jungles, lie structures so ancient, so impossibly crafted, that even the sharpest minds of history struggle to explain them. Colossal stones weighing hundreds of tons, lifted and placed with a precision our most advanced machines would find daunting. Temples aligned perfectly with celestial bodies, as if their builders had mapped the skies with technology we've only just begun to rediscover. Stairways that climb toward the heavens, carved by hands we can no longer name. These are not just ruins. They are whispers from a civilization, or perhaps many civilizations, that understood something we do not. Who built them? How did they achieve feats that defy logic and engineering? And why, after centuries of study, do these questions still hang unanswered in the air like shadows that refuse to fade? Tonight, we step beyond the veil of certainty into the realm of the unexplained. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the ancient mysteries historians still can't unravel. In the rolling hills of north-central Turkey, where the air is dry and the earth still carries the scent of ancient dust, lies the once mighty city of Hattusa. Today, it is little more than ruins, fragments of stone walls, scattered carvings, faint outlines of temples that once held power and meaning. But amidst this quiet landscape, one structure continues to capture the imagination of scholars and travelers alike. It is known simply as the Lion Gate. At first glance, the gate is unassuming, a gap in the remnants of an ancient fortification, but as you draw closer, your eyes are pulled inevitably to the massive lions carved into the stone, standing sentinel on either side. Their forms are powerful, almost alive, jaws slightly open as if ready to roar. Their eyes, though weathered by 3 millennia of wind and rain, still seem to gaze outward, confronting all who would dare to enter. The Lion Gate was built by the Hittites, a people who rose to power in the late Bronze Age. By the 14th century BCE, their empire stretched across much of Anatolia and into the Levant. Hattusa, their capital, was encircled by walls that wound for nearly 6 kilometers. Walls punctuated by gates named for the guardians that adorned them: the King's Gate, the Sphinx Gate, and here, the Lions. Historians tell us that these gates served practical and symbolic purposes. Militarily, they controlled entry into the city, channeling visitors and armies alike. Symbolically, they embodied the strength of the Hittite state. The lion, after all, was more than an animal to the Hittites. It was a cosmic figure, a protector against chaos, a reminder of royal power and divine order. Passing through the jaws of stone was not merely crossing a threshold of rock. It was entering a realm bound by sacred authority. Yet, despite the clarity of these explanations, questions remain. The lions are carved from enormous blocks of stone, fitted with such precision that the seams between them are nearly invisible. How were such massive stones transported to the site? What techniques allowed Bronze Age builders to shape and position them so flawlessly? Archaeologists offer careful reconstructions: ropes, ramps, manpower, but none can be demonstrated with certainty. And then there is the deeper mystery. Why such monumental effort for a gate? Was it solely to intimidate enemies and impress visitors? Or was there something more? Something the Hittites believed lay beyond the reach of ordinary eyes. Some researchers point to the symbolic placement of the gates in relation to the sun, suggesting astronomical alignments. Others note similarities between Hittite architecture and structures in Mesopotamia or even further afield, wondering if knowledge traveled more widely in the ancient world than we often assume. There are even those who suggest that the gate may have served ritual functions, that the lions were not merely guardians of the city, but guardians of passage itself, between the mortal realm and the divine. More speculative voices go further still. could these gates represent echoes of a forgotten technology, a knowledge of stoneworking or engineering that has since been lost? Were the lions meant as mere decoration, or could they have held a role in ceremonies we can scarcely imagine today, rituals of power, of death, of communication with the gods? Of course, mainstream archaeology remains cautious. The lions, they remind us, are consistent with known Hittite art, and the techniques required, while impressive, are not beyond the reach of Bronze Age societies. The mystery is less in how it was built, perhaps, and more in why. What compelled the Hittites to invest so much in stone, in symbolism, in shaping their city into a fortress not only of power, but of meaning? When you stand before the Lion Gate today, it is not hard to feel that compulsion yourself. The silence of the ruins presses in. The lions, their features softened but not erased, seem to exist outside of time. You cannot help but wonder what voices once echoed here: chants, proclamations, the footsteps of kings, the cries of armies entering or leaving their capital. You cannot help but sense that the stones carry secrets, etched invisibly in their surfaces, secrets no archaeologist's spade can quite uncover. And so the Lion Gate endures, part of history and part of mystery. Was it simply a grand entrance into a city of power, or was it something more, an attempt to bind stone, sky, and spirit into one? Did the Hittites build with the knowledge that their empire would fall, leaving behind only fragments to puzzle over? Or did they believe, perhaps, that their lions would stand forever, guardians not just of Hattusa, but of truths too large for us to grasp? The answers are elusive. The lions do not speak. They only watch, as they have for more than 3,000 years, watching, waiting, daring us to understand. From the stone lions of Anatolia standing watch over a vanished empire, we journey far south and west, across deserts, rivers, and savannas, into the heart of West Africa. Here, where the land rises sharply from the plains of Mali, another mystery takes form. It is a place both remote and arresting, a sheer wall of sandstone cliffs known as the Bandiagara Escarpment. Stretching for nearly 150 kilometers, the escarpment rises abruptly from the surrounding landscape, its rugged face punctuated by caves, hollows, and shelves. From a distance, it appears wild and impassable, a natural fortress carved by the slow hand of geological time. But look closer, and you see something unexpected. Dwellings clinging to the cliffside, perched hundreds of feet above the valley floor. Small openings in the rock, remnants of mud and straw granaries, stone walls fitted snugly into ledges that seem impossible to reach. These are not the random marks of nature. They are the unmistakable traces of human hands. We know that the escarpment has been home to the Dogon people for centuries, perhaps since the 14th or 15th century CE. The Dogon settled here for reasons of defense and survival, carving homes into the cliffs, building granaries, shrines, and ritual spaces in places that appear all but unreachable. Their villages, clusters of adobe towers and flat-roofed houses, still dot the base of the escarpment today. The cliffs are not abandoned. They remain a living cultural landscape, recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site. Yet the story does not end with the Dogon. Long before their arrival, the cliffs were inhabited by another group, the Telem. Almost nothing is known about them. Their name itself, Telem, is said to mean those who were before. What we do know comes largely from the architecture they left behind. Cliffside dwellings tucked into vertical faces of stone, often accessible only by precarious climbs or narrow ledges. Some are so high that even skilled modern climbers wonder how anyone, let alone a community, could have built and maintained them. Who were the Telem? Oral traditions suggest they were smaller in stature than the Dogon and possessed unusual knowledge of the cliffs. Their homes, situated at such dizzying heights, may have provided protection from enemies on the plains. Some researchers propose that the Telem specialized in funeral practices, using the caves as burial chambers. Indeed, human remains, textiles, and artifacts have been discovered in the cliffside cavities, preserved by the arid climate. But these explanations do not erase the deeper puzzle. How were these structures built in such inaccessible locations? Were the Telem master climbers, using ropes, scaffolds, or wooden ladders? Did they carve footholds into the rock, or did they possess knowledge of materials, techniques, or even simple ingenuity that has since been forgotten? Standing at the base of the escarpment, gazing upward at the openings etched into sheer rock, the question presses in: how? The Dogon people themselves add another layer of intrigue. Beyond their architectural inheritance, the Dogon have long been associated with complex cosmological traditions. Anthropologists studying their culture in the 20th century recorded stories of celestial knowledge, the orbits of Sirius and its companion star, for instance, that seem to predate the availability of modern astronomical tools. Some scholars argue that these accounts were misunderstood or exaggerated, while others suggest they may reflect ancient observations passed down through oral tradition. Still, the idea lingers. Could the Dogon, or perhaps the Telem before them, have possessed insights into the natural world that we do not fully comprehend today? Most archaeologists caution against leaping too far. The cliff dwellings, they argue, were not supernatural feats, but the result of determination and adaptation. In a hostile environment, the Telem may simply have found the safest refuge in places their enemies could not follow. Clever use of ropes, ladders, or scaffolding could explain much of what we see. And yet, when you walk beneath those towering cliffs, the rational explanations do not quite dispel the sense of wonder. Practical methods may account for how the dwellings were built, but not for the aura they carry. As with many ancient mysteries, speculation thrives where certainty is absent. Some fringe theorists propose that the cliff dwellings were not merely homes or tombs, but part of a ritual landscape, positions chosen not for practicality, but for alignment with celestial events or unseen forces. Others, noting the difficulty of construction, wonder whether outside influence played a role, travelers from distant lands, or perhaps a now lost civilization that passed through West Africa long before written records. Such ideas remain unproven. But the fact that the question is asked at all speaks to the enduring power of the cliffs. They provoke not only admiration, but also curiosity, a feeling that what is visible may not be the whole story. Today, the Bandiagara escarpment remains a place of life, ritual, and continuity. The Dogon continue to hold ceremonies at the foot of the cliffs to tell stories of their ancestors, to pass down traditions that root them firmly in this dramatic landscape. But when you lift your eyes to the shadowed alcoves high above, the silence is overwhelming. The mud brick forms sit empty, their builders long vanished. Who were the Telem, really? Why did they build so high, risking so much for dwellings that defy reason? And what else, hidden in crevices, buried in collapsed chambers, or preserved in memory, might still be waiting to be discovered? As the sun sets and the escarpment glows red in the fading light, the questions remain, suspended in the air like the dwellings themselves, fragile, unreachable, and enduring. From the cliffs of Mali, where ancient dwellings cling to the rock like echoes of forgotten lives, our path now crosses oceans and continents. We arrive in South America, in the eastern foothills of the Bolivian Andes, where another enigma waits in silence. At first, it appears to be a simple hill, a rise in the land surrounded by forest and cloud-draped mountains. But as you approach, the hill reveals its secret, a vast expanse of stone, carved and shaped on a scale that defies easy explanation. This is El Fuerte de Samaipata, the fortress of Samaipata. The name is misleading. This is no fortress in the traditional sense. What lies here is a single massive rock, more than 200 meters long, rising above the valley floor. Its entire surface has been painstakingly carved. Terraces cut into the slopes, channels running across its face, ceremonial niches, animal figures, and geometric patterns etched directly into the sandstone. From above, it resembles a kind of open-air canvas, as though the mountain itself had been turned into a monument. Archaeologists date the site back at least to the 14th and 15th centuries, when it was occupied by the Inca. But evidence suggests its origins may be far older. Some believe it was first created by the Chane people, an Arawak-speaking culture that settled the region centuries before the Incas arrived. Later, the Inca incorporated it into their empire, adding structures at its base, and in the 16th century, the Spanish briefly occupied it, building their own colonial outpost nearby. This layering of cultures, Chane, Inca, Spanish, makes Samaipata a palimpsest of human history, a place where one civilization built upon the remains of another. And yet, despite what is known, the question remains: what was it for? The carvings themselves seem to resist simple categorization. Long parallel channels run down the rock, some intersecting, some appearing to drain into basins carved at lower points. Were these channels part of a hydraulic system, collecting water, directing rain, perhaps even used in agricultural rituals? Or were they symbolic, representations of rivers and pathways in the Inca or pre-Inca cosmos? Nearby niches, rectangular and shallow, are cut into vertical walls of the stone. Did they hold offerings, idols, or simply serve as markers of ritual? Even more puzzling are the figures. Carved into the surface are shapes resembling animals, serpents, pumas, perhaps even birds. Some appear to be stylized, while others are abstract, their meaning lost to time. To the people who built them, these were not mere decorations. They were cosmological symbols, threads in a spiritual map. But to us, they are fragments of a language we cannot fully read. Mainstream scholars suggest that Samaipata was a ceremonial center, a sacred site used for religious gatherings, astronomy, and offerings to the gods. From its elevated position, the rock provides sweeping views of the surrounding valleys, the sky open and unobstructed. Could the channels and figures align with celestial events, marking solstices or tracking constellations? Some researchers argue that the site may have functioned as a kind of giant observatory, where priests and leaders gathered to interpret the heavens. But as always, when explanations leave gaps, speculation finds fertile ground. Some fringe theories propose that Samaipata was not simply ceremonial, but something more enigmatic. The sheer size of the rock, its intricate carvings, and the absence of definitive explanations have led some to wonder, was this site a map, a cosmic diagram of the universe? Was it designed to channel not just water, but energy? Others go further still, imagining it as a landing platform for beings from beyond our world, though such ideas remain outside the boundaries of accepted history. Yet even if we set aside the speculative, the site itself continues to defy our understanding. The sheer effort involved in carving such an immense rock surface is staggering. What compelled the Chane, or perhaps earlier peoples, to dedicate such resources to this place? And why here, in this remote valley, far from the great centers of power like Cusco or Tiwanaku? Walking across the rock today, you can still trace the lines with your fingers. The sandstone is worn but enduring, the grooves smooth beneath the touch. You can stand within the channels, peer into the niches, gaze at the outlines of serpent-like figures that curve across the surface. The wind moves softly over the hilltop, carrying with it the weight of centuries. You cannot help but feel that the stone is speaking, but in a language we have yet to translate. Some believe that Samaipata was deliberately left unfinished. Certain carvings appear incomplete, channels that seem to end abruptly, niches half-formed. Was the site abandoned before its creators could finish? Did conquest, disaster, or some unknown event interrupt their work? Or was the very sense of incompleteness intentional, part of a ritual that valued process as much as result? The Spanish, when they arrived, did not fully understand what they had found. To them, it was a curious ruin, a high place with traces of heathen ritual. They built their own settlement nearby, but the effort failed, and the site was abandoned once more. For centuries afterward, Samaipata lay forgotten, known only to local communities and travelers who passed through. Only in the modern era has it been studied in detail, its mysteries catalogued but never fully resolved. And so Samaipata stands, neither fortress nor mere ruin, but something in between. A ceremonial complex, a spiritual observatory, a mountain-turned monument. Its carvings speak of water, animals, the heavens, yet they leave us with silence where answers should be. Was it a place of worship, a cosmic map, a gathering point for leaders and shamans? Or was it something else entirely, a purpose now erased from memory? As the sun sets over the Bolivian Andes, the great rock glows with a deep orange light, the carvings casting long shadows across its surface. The site feels alive, as though it continues to breathe with the echoes of its builders. And in that silence, the question lingers, the same question that haunts so many of the world's ancient structures. Not only how it was made, but why. What compelled its creators to shape an entire mountain into a monument of such scale and mystery? And what secrets might still lie beneath the stone, waiting for the day when we are finally ready to understand? From the carved rock of Samaipata, where the mountain itself became a monument, our journey carries us deeper into the Andes. Here, the land rises into dramatic ridges, cloaked in mist and cloud, where silence is broken only by the rush of rivers far below. Hidden within this wilderness lies another enigma, one that has often been called the sister of Machu Picchu, though it remains far more elusive. Its name is Choqquequirao, the Cradle of Gold. Perched high above the Apurimac River, at nearly 3,000 meters above sea level, Choqquequirao is not a single ruin, but an entire complex of terraces, plazas, stairways, and ceremonial spaces carved into the mountainside. Approaching it is no simple task. Unlike Machu Picchu, accessible by train and bus, Choqquequirao demands a 2-day trek through steep valleys and rugged terrain. It is this isolation that has preserved its mystery. To walk among its terraces today is to step into a place suspended between discovery and legend. Archaeologists believe Choqquequirao was built during the height of the Inca Empire in the 15th and 16th centuries. The site covers an area of more than 1,800 hectares, though only a fraction has been excavated. Its layout bears the hallmarks of Inca design: precisely cut stone walls, trapezoidal doorways, and vast agricultural terraces that cascade down the slopes. There are plazas for gathering, ritual platforms, and long stairways that seem to descend into the clouds themselves. But what role did this city serve? One explanation suggests that Choqquequirao was an administrative center, a node in the vast Inca network that spanned from modern-day Colombia to Chile. Its terraces could have supported agriculture, feeding the local population, and supplying travelers on the long Inca roads. Its plazas and ceremonial spaces may have hosted rituals, festivals, and offerings to the gods. Another view casts Choqquequirao in a more political light. Some historians argue that it was a royal estate, built for Inca nobility, much like Machu Picchu was believed to have been. Its grandeur, scale, and location in a commanding landscape lend weight to this theory. Yet there is also a darker possibility. Oral traditions suggest that Choqquequirao may have been one of the last refugees of the Inca after the Spanish conquest. When Cusco fell in the 1530s, survivors and resistance leaders are said to have retreated into the mountains, carrying with them treasures and sacred knowledge. Could Choqquequirao have served as a hidden stronghold of the empire's final days? A place where its leaders tried to preserve what was slipping away? The evidence is suggestive but inconclusive. The site's isolation, its massive scale, and its unfinished areas hint at a city built for endurance but perhaps never fully realized. Some terraces appear abandoned mid-construction. Stonework lies half-carved, as though the builders were interrupted. Did the Spanish invasion halt its completion, or was the city deliberately left incomplete for reasons we do not understand? Choqquequirao also offers one of the most striking artistic mysteries of the Inca world: the white stone figures embedded in its terraces. Known as llama terraces, they depict stylized llamas and their herders ascending the mountainside, created by placing pale stones against darker retaining walls. These images are both decorative and symbolic. Llamas were vital to Inca life, as pack animals, as sources of wool and meat, and as sacred offerings. But the scale of these terraces, and the effort required to embed such detailed figures into functional agricultural structures, raises questions. Were they purely artistic flourishes, or did they encode ritual significance, a fusion of function and belief that we have yet to decode? And then there is the matter of alignment. Like many Inca sites, Choqquequirao seems carefully positioned in relation to the surrounding landscape and the movements of the sun. Some researchers argue that its plazas and platforms may have been designed to track solstices or mark agricultural cycles. Others suggest that its position above the Apurimac Valley, an area considered sacred, associated with powerful deities, was no accident. To the Incas, mountains were not mere geography. They were living beings, guardians known as apus. Choqquequirao may have been built as a dialogue between stone and sky, a place where humans sought to commune with the powers of the earth. But speculation does not stop there. A handful of writers and fringe theorists propose that Choqquequirao, like Machu Picchu, may be part of a larger network of sites hidden in the Andes, cities aligned along invisible lines, designed according to principles we only dimly perceive. Some wonder if these alignments extend beyond practical or spiritual concerns, hinting at knowledge of the landscape, astronomy, or even energies that modern science does not yet recognize. Most archaeologists are cautious with such claims. They point instead to the Incas' undeniable genius for adapting to their environment. Their engineering, terracing mountainsides, channeling water, constructing earthquake-resistant walls, was advanced, but not inexplicable. Choqquequirao, they argue, is a product of this mastery, a testament to human resilience in one of the world's harshest landscapes. And yet, standing there, the rational explanations do not entirely strip away the wonder. The sheer scale of the site, most of it still buried beneath jungle, leaves open the possibility that we have only glimpsed part of its story. What lies in the unexcavated terraces, the collapsed stairways, the shadowed valleys below? What knowledge might still be hidden under centuries of soil and vegetation? As dusk falls over Choqquequirao, the mountains turn violet, and mist begins to coil around the terraces. The llamas etched in stone seem to climb eternally upward, frozen in their silent procession. The plazas empty into shadow, and the silence deepens. Was Choqquequirao merely another royal estate, a ceremonial center, a mountain city abandoned to time? Or was it something more, a final refuge, a secret stronghold, a place whose full purpose has yet to reveal itself? The questions linger, unanswered, as the night closes in. And like so many of the world's ancient structures, Choqquequirao keeps its silence, holding its secrets close in the high folds of the Andes. From the misty heights of the Andes, our path now turns eastward across the vast Pacific to another mountain, but one of a very different kind. Here, on the island of Java in Indonesia, the dense green jungle conceals a site that has unsettled archaeologists and ignited fierce debate. It is called Gunung Padang, and some claim it may be the oldest megalithic structure in the world. At first glance, Gunung Padang does not reveal its secrets easily. Rising above the surrounding valleys, it appears to be little more than a grassy hill, dotted with irregular stone columns. From a distance, it could be mistaken for a natural formation, shaped by time and weather. But as you climb its steep stairways, past terraces and scattered megaliths, a different picture begins to emerge. The stones are not random. They are arranged, stacked, and aligned. The hill itself may not be a hill at all, but something far more deliberate. The visible portion of Gunung Padang consists of 5 terraces, each edged with rows of massive basalt pillars. Some stand upright, while others lie stacked like giant logs. The layout suggests purpose. Platforms connected by staircases, spaces that may once have served as ceremonial or communal areas. For generations, local people have regarded this site as sacred, a place imbued with spiritual energy. Even the name, Gunung Padang, means mountain of light or mountain of enlightenment. Traditional archaeological dating placed the site within the last few thousand years, perhaps linked to Indonesia's Neolithic cultures. But in recent decades, new investigations have challenged that timeline dramatically. Beneath the terraces, ground-penetrating radar and core samples have revealed layers of stone and soil extending deep below the surface. Some researchers argue that the core of Gunung Padang is not natural geology at all, but a massive, man-made structure, possibly built in stages over tens of thousands of years. This is where the controversy begins. Radiocarbon samples taken from soil layers within the site have returned dates as old as 20,000 to 25,000 years before present, long before conventional history allows for complex architecture. If these results are accurate, Gunung Padang would rewrite the story of human civilization, pushing the timeline of megalithic building back to the last ice age. But the findings are disputed. Critics argue that the dating may reflect natural processes, such as soil movement or contamination, rather than human construction. They maintain that the basalt columns are a natural volcanic formation, later modified by humans into terraces. In this view, Gunung Padang is remarkable, but not revolutionary, an impressive example of early engineering, yet still within the known framework of history. And yet, the questions persist. The basalt blocks, some weighing several hundred kilograms, were transported and placed with care. Some appear cut to shape, with flat sides and sharp edges. The terraces align with a precision difficult to explain as mere chance. What purpose would such a massive undertaking have served, especially if it truly dates back to an era when most humans were thought to live as small, nomadic groups? Theories abound. Some suggest Gunung Padang was a ritual center, a place of gathering for early communities. Others believe it may have been an astronomical observatory, its terraces aligned to track the movements of the sun, moon, or stars. More speculative voices propose it was the legacy of a forgotten civilization, one that flourished long before the rise of Sumer, Egypt, or the Indus Valley. These ideas tie into broader debates about human history. Could there have been advanced cultures during the last ice age, lost to time and catastrophe? Were sites like Gunung Padang isolated experiments or fragments of a larger hidden story? Even in its present state, the site provokes a sense of unease and wonder. The stone pillars lie tumbled and weathered as though the mountain itself has tried to reclaim them. The stairways climb steeply, their edges worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. And all the while, the forest presses close, its canopy hiding whatever secrets still lie buried beneath the surface. Geological surveys hint at chambers deep within the hill, spaces that may once have been hollowed out for unknown purposes. Are these natural cavities or remnants of construction? Excavations have been limited, and for now, the answers remain out of reach. Standing atop Gunung Padang, the view stretches across rolling hills and distant volcanoes. The air is heavy with humidity, the sounds of cicadas and birds filling the silence between stone terraces. It is easy to imagine rituals performed here, offerings made to unseen powers, voices rising into the sky. But it is just as easy to wonder whether we are looking at the ruins of something older, more enigmatic, something we have not yet learned how to recognize. If Gunung Padang is truly as ancient as some suggest, then what does it say about us? About the resilience of human ingenuity and the fragility of memory? How many other sites might lie hidden beneath jungles, deserts, or seas, dismissed as natural hills until someone looks closer? The mountain does not answer. Its stones are silent, its terraces patient. And like so many ancient structures, Gunung Padang leaves us caught between certainty and speculation. Was it a ceremonial hilltop of early farmers, a monumental project of a forgotten people, or the key to a chapter of history we have only just begun to glimpse? The truth may still lie buried, waiting. Until then, Gunung Padang remains both a site and a symbol, a reminder that the ground beneath our feet may hold stories far older and far stranger than we dare to imagine. From the misted valleys of the Andes, where Chachapoya clings to its mountainside, our journey shifts across oceans to a land equally shaped by stone, but in a setting very different. Here, in the highlands of western Java, Indonesia, the dense folds of tropical forest conceal a hill that has puzzled both archaeologists and geologists alike. At first glance, it appears unremarkable, a grassy mound rising gently above the surrounding terrain, but on its summit lie rows of weathered basalt columns, arranged in terraces, stairways, and platforms. Locals call this place Gunung Padang, the Mountain of Enlightenment. The site does not announce itself with towering walls or intricate carvings. Instead, its power lies in its simplicity, in the sheer scale of its stone arrangements. Thousands of upright pillars dot the landscape, some standing, many fallen, their edges softened by centuries of rain. Climb the steep steps carved into its slopes, and the terraces reveal themselves. Platforms edged with megaliths, overlooking the lush valleys below. Even without knowing its age, one senses a place set apart, a landscape shaped by deliberate human hands. For generations, local communities have treated Gunung Padang as sacred ground. Rituals and offerings were performed here, the hill regarded as a site of ancestral power. Its terraces were seen not merely as old stones, but as a link between the human and the divine. To this day, some visitors report a strange energy upon the hill, as if its stones still carry a charge from long ago. The first systematic archaeological studies, conducted in the 20th century, classified Gunung Padang as a megalithic site dating to roughly 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. In this view, it was the work of early agricultural communities who built terraces and ceremonial platforms from naturally occurring basalt columns. Impressive, certainly, but not beyond what we might expect from Neolithic societies in the region. And yet, as investigations deepened, the story became less straightforward. Beneath the visible terraces, geophysical surveys revealed layers upon layers of stone, extending deep into the hill. Ground-penetrating radar, seismic tomography, and core drilling suggested the hill might not be entirely natural. Instead, it appeared to be built, or at least modified, on a monumental scale, with structures buried far below the surface. This discovery ignited one of the most heated debates in modern archaeology. Some researchers, pointing to radiocarbon samples from organic material within the layers, proposed astonishing dates, as old as 10,000, 15, even 20,000 years before present. If true, Gunung Padang would not simply be the largest megalithic site in Southeast Asia. It would be the oldest known man-made structure on Earth, predating the pyramids of Egypt, Stonehenge, and even the earliest known civilizations of Mesopotamia. But such claims are not without controversy. Many mainstream archaeologists urge caution, suggesting the dating results may reflect natural processes rather than human construction. Soil can shift, organic material can migrate through layers, and volcanic formations can mimic the appearance of man-made arrangements. In their view, Gunung Padang may be much younger, a remarkable but not unprecedented example of human ingenuity in the late Neolithic. Still, the evidence continues to provoke questions. Why do the terraces align so clearly, with staircases leading upward in a sequence that suggests design? Why were the basalt columns, some weighing several hundred kilograms, transported and set into deliberate rows? If the hill is partly artificial, what drove its builders to undertake such a colossal task? And what knowledge allowed them to manipulate stone on this scale? The purpose of Gunung Padang remains equally elusive. Some see it as a ceremonial center, a place where rituals marked the turning of seasons or honored ancestral spirits. Others suggest astronomical alignments, with terraces positioned to track the movements of the sun and stars. More speculative interpretations envision it as a gathering place for a lost culture, one that may have flourished during the last ice age and then vanished, leaving only stones as testimony. Beneath the hill, seismic imaging hints at cavities, hollow spaces that could be chambers, or simply natural voids within volcanic rock. Could these chambers hold artifacts, writings, or remains that might clarify the site's origins? Excavations so far have been limited, and many questions remain unanswered. Until deeper studies are carried out, these possibilities remain tantalizing, but unresolved. What is beyond doubt is the aura of mystery that surrounds Gunung Padang. To stand atop its summit is to feel caught between two worlds, one of clear human craftsmanship and another of geological ambiguity. It is a place where science and legend meet, where the line between natural formation and human monument blurs. If Gunung Padang is indeed as ancient as some believe, then it suggests a civilization capable of monumental architecture at a time when mainstream history insists humanity was still scattered, surviving as hunter-gatherers. Could the story of civilization be older, more complex than we have been taught? Or is this simply a reminder of the dangers of seeing patterns where none exist, of imposing narrative onto the silent stones of the earth? The hill does not provide an easy answer. Its terraces lie quiet, its basalt blocks unmoving. But the questions it raises ripple far beyond Java, touching on the foundations of our understanding of human history. Was Gunung Padang a ceremonial site of early farmers, a local expression of spiritual devotion? Or was it something far greater, a fragment of a forgotten past, buried beneath the soil and waiting to be uncovered? For now, we can only look, measure, and wonder. The mountain holds its secrets in silence, challenging us to reconsider what we know and what we have yet to learn. From the humid jungles of Indonesia, where Gunung Padang challenges our assumptions about the earliest builders of stone, we journey westward across seas and mountains into the dry plains of the Indus Valley. Here, in the baking heat of Sindh, Pakistan, lie the ruins of a city unlike any other of its age. Its name, given in modern times, is Mohenjo-Daro, the Mound of the Dead. Rising from the flat river plain, the site at first appears unremarkable. A series of low mounds of brick, weathered walls, and eroded streets. Yet as one looks closer, a staggering picture begins to emerge. More than 4,000 years ago, Mohenjo-Daro was not a village, nor a fortress, but one of the largest and most advanced cities of the ancient world. At its height, it may have been home to 40,000 people, its streets carefully planned, its houses uniform in design, its public spaces arranged with astonishing precision. This was no ordinary settlement. Mohenjo-Daro was built on a grid system, its streets intersecting at right angles, lined with homes made of standardized fired brick. Many of these homes were equipped with private wells, bathing areas, and even rudimentary toilets connected to a sophisticated system of underground drains. Public granaries stored food, communal baths served civic or ritual needs, and raised platforms offered protection against the floods of the Indus. To walk its ancient streets today is to glimpse a world startlingly modern in its order and ambition. Thousands of years before the aqueducts of Rome or the paved avenues of Greece, the people of Mohenjo-Daro had already mastered urban planning on a scale that would not be matched for centuries. And yet, for all this brilliance, a profound mystery lingers. The people of Mohenjo-Daro belonged to the Indus Valley Civilization, one of the great cradles of antiquity, alongside Egypt and Mesopotamia. But unlike those civilizations, the Indus people left behind no deciphered texts, no royal inscriptions, no monumental temples that speak clearly of their rulers or their gods. Small seals, inscribed with strange symbols and animal motifs, are found throughout the ruins, but their meaning remains undeciphered. Were they marks of trade, prayers to deities, records of ownership, or something else entirely? Without written records, the story of Mohenjo-Daro is told only through its stones and artifacts, and much remains open to interpretation. Who built this city? How was it governed? What belief systems animated its people? The archaeological record offers hints but no clear answers. Even more perplexing is the city's sudden decline. Around 1900 BCE, Mohenjo-Daro, along with other Indus cities, began to wither. Streets fell into disrepair, wells dried, and the population dwindled. By 1700 BCE, the city was largely abandoned. But why? Mainstream explanations point to environmental shifts, changes in the course of the Indus River, prolonged drought, or floods that disrupted agriculture. Others suggest invasions by outside groups may have played a role, though evidence remains sparse. And yet, the site has also inspired more speculative theories. In the early 20th century, some archaeologists noted unusual signs of burning on parts of the ruins, leading to controversial claims of a great catastrophe. A handful of skeletons, discovered lying in the streets, gave rise to suggestions of sudden disaster. Some fringe theories went so far as to imagine an ancient explosion, even likened by some writers to a nuclear blast. A theory largely dismissed by science, but one that persists in popular imagination, fueled by the city's abrupt abandonment and its evocative name, the Mound of the Dead. Others look at the uniformity of Mohenjo-Daro and see something equally mysterious. How was such careful planning enforced? Did the city have a centralized authority? Or was it governed collectively in a way unlike the monarchies of Mesopotamia and Egypt? The absence of palaces or clear royal tombs suggests a society structured differently, perhaps more egalitarian, or perhaps guided by a form of rule we have yet to recognize. And then there is the enigma of the Indus script. Thousands of small seals, carved with animals, human figures, and abstract signs, have been unearthed across the Indus Valley. Yet no one has been able to read them. Without a bilingual key like the Rosetta Stone, the meaning of these inscriptions remains locked away. Were they religious texts, administrative records, a language, or a symbolic code? The silence of these seals may hold the answers to Mohenjo-Daro's greatest mysteries, but for now, they remain stubbornly opaque. What we do know is this. Mohenjo-Daro represents a level of civic organization and urban sophistication far ahead of its time. Its people understood water management, urban hygiene, and construction with a clarity that challenges our assumptions about the Bronze Age. And yet, their identity, beliefs, and fate remain shrouded in silence. Walking among its ruins today, under the relentless sun, one feels both awe and unease. Streets that once bustled with life now lie deserted. Wells stand dry, their brick walls crumbling. The Great Bath, a large sunken pool lined with waterproofed bricks, still dominates the site. Its purpose uncertain. Was it used for ritual purification, communal gathering, or something else entirely? Mohenjo-Daro is a paradox, a city that reveals so much and yet tells us so little. Its drains and streets speak of advanced knowledge, but its silence on matters of culture, religion, and leadership leaves us grasping in the dark. Why did such a sophisticated society vanish, leaving behind no memory in the traditions of later India? Was it undone by climate, by disaster, by invasion, or by forces we cannot yet perceive? And if such an advanced culture could rise and fall, largely erased from human memory, what does that say about the fragility of our own? The wind blows across the ruins, carrying dust through empty streets. The mound of the dead keeps its name and its silence. And as with so many ancient places, we are left to wonder, is Mohenjo-Daro simply a lost chapter of history? Or is it a story we have not yet begun to read? From the soaring terraces of Ollantaytambo, carved into the Andean mountains with precision and purpose, our journey now drifts eastward, across oceans and jungles, into the heart of Southeast Asia. Here, in the rugged highlands of Laos, lies a landscape unlike any other. Rolling hills stretch toward the horizon, but it is not the land itself that captivates the imagination. It is what rests upon it. Scattered across these plateaus are thousands of massive stone vessels, some as tall as a person, others heavy enough to rival the great monoliths of the ancient world. Together, they form what is known today as the Plain of Jars. At first glance, the sight is almost surreal. Giant stone jars, hollowed from single blocks of sandstone, granite, or limestone, sit in clusters across the countryside. Some rest upright, others lean precariously, cracked and worn by centuries of rain and wind. A few lie toppled on their sides, their weight too great for time to conceal. The effect is haunting. A field of silent sentinels, each jar holding its own mystery, as though waiting to reveal a story that has never been fully told. But what are these jars? Who made them, and why? The questions linger, unanswered, over the windswept plateaus. Archaeologists have dated the Plain of Jars to the Iron Age, around 500 BCE to 500 CE. The sheer number, over 2,000 jars across more than 90 sites, suggests an effort both immense and deliberate. Yet the purpose remains contested. The most widely accepted theory is that these jars were used in funerary practices. Excavations near some jars have uncovered human remains, ceramic fragments, and burial goods, pointing to their role in complex rituals surrounding death and the afterlife. Some scholars propose that bodies may have been placed in the jars to decompose, after which bones were interred elsewhere. Others suggest they served as symbolic markers, monumental containers for offerings to the spirits of the dead. Still, these explanations leave much unresolved. Why jars? Why not tombs or pyramids or monuments carved into the rock? What cultural or spiritual significance did these massive stone vessels hold? And how were they moved, carved from distant quarries, then transported across uneven terrain, sometimes for miles. The weight of a single jar can exceed 10 tons. To imagine their relocation without wheels, beasts of burden, or advanced machinery is to confront yet another mystery of ancient ingenuity. The jars themselves vary in size and style. Some are small enough for one person to peer into, while others are towering giants, capable of holding a human body with ease. Many lack lids, though some stone discs have been discovered nearby that may have once served this purpose. Intriguingly, a few jars contain faint carvings, simple human figures, geometric designs etched into their weathered surfaces. Were these decorative, ceremonial, or did they hold meanings now lost to time? Local legends provide their own explanations. One of the most enduring tales speaks of giants who once roamed these lands. According to the story, the jars were created by a race of titans, used to brew rice wine for great celebrations after victories in battle. Another version suggests they were storage vessels, meant to hold food, water, or alcohol for entire communities during times of hardship. While these accounts are mythological, they echo something profound. The jars are so enormous, so out of proportion with ordinary human use, that they seem to belong to a world larger than our own. More speculative voices go further still. Could the plain of jars have served as an astronomical observatory, the jars aligning with celestial movements? Some researchers have noted their distribution across highland ridges and valleys, hinting at patterns that may not be random. Others suggest they were part of a forgotten ritual landscape, a ceremonial complex stretching far beyond the sites we see today. And yet, there is another layer of silence imposed upon this mystery, one not by time, but by history. The Plain of Jars lies in a region heavily bombed during the 20th century, leaving unexploded ordnance scattered across the land. For decades, vast portions of the site were inaccessible, too dangerous to study. Only recently have clearance efforts allowed archaeologists to safely excavate certain areas, and with each dig, fragments of the past slowly emerge. But for now, much of the plain remains closed, its secrets locked not only in stone but in soil still too perilous to disturb. The isolation of the site adds to its haunting presence. Walking among the jars, one feels both the weight of antiquity and the fragility of memory. The air is quiet, broken only by the wind moving through tall grasses. The jars stand like hollow monuments, their empty mouths open to the sky. Were they once filled with offerings to the ancestors? Did they hold the remains of kings, warriors, or common villagers? Or are we imposing meaning where none survives, projecting our need for answers onto vessels designed for purposes we can no longer comprehend? The Plain of Jars invites reflection as much as investigation. Unlike the pyramids of Egypt or the temples of Mesopotamia, these structures do not speak in grandeur or scale of empire. They are humble, even understated, massive, yes, but unadorned, silent. And yet their very existence suggests a culture with resources, organization, and beliefs powerful enough to carve and place thousands of them across the land. A culture whose voice has almost entirely vanished, leaving behind only these enigmatic vessels as a testament to their worldview. Standing here, one is confronted by absence as much as presence. The jars endure, but the people who made them, their language, their rituals, their stories, all are gone. The mystery lies not only in the stones themselves, but in the silence that surrounds them. What compels a society to carve thousands of giant jars from solid rock? What beliefs drove them to labor so intensely, to scatter these vessels across valleys and ridges? And why has time erased nearly every trace of the meaning behind them? The Plain of Jars does not give us answers. It leaves us with questions, lingering in the air like the mist that rolls over the Laotian highlands at dawn. Perhaps that is its greatest power. It forces us to pause, to wonder, and to accept that not all of history is meant to be neatly explained. Some stories remain half-told, etched into stone, waiting for voices that may never return. And so the jars remain, scattered and silent, guardians of a mystery that has endured for more than 2 millennia. Do they mark the resting places of the dead, the celebrations of the living, or do they point to something deeper, something we have yet to uncover? The truth, like the landscape itself, lies shrouded in quiet, still waiting to be revealed. From the windswept hills of Laos, where the plain of jars lies scattered in silent clusters, we turn once more toward one of history's most enigmatic landscapes, Egypt. Here, in the sands of Abydos, beyond the familiar temples and monuments of the pharaohs, lies a structure that seems both part of Egypt's story and yet somehow apart from it. A place whose architecture raises more questions than it answers. This is the Osiraion, a subterranean temple that feels ancient even in a land defined by antiquity. At first glance, the Osiraion does not resemble the elegant temples of Luxor or Karnak. There are no soaring pylons, no walls inscribed with scenes of royal triumph. Instead, one descends into the earth, stepping into a chamber where massive granite blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, form a stark, cyclopean interior. The stones are rougher than the finely carved hieroglyphs that adorn nearby temples, and their scale suggests a style more primal, more archaic. Walking here feels like stepping into a different time altogether, as though the Osiraion was not built for dynastic Egypt, but inherited by it. The site lies behind the Temple of Seti I, one of the most beautifully decorated temples in all of Egypt. Archaeologists generally agree that the Osiraion was constructed as a cenotaph, a symbolic tomb dedicated to Osiris, the god of the afterlife. Its placement at Abydos, long associated with Osiris worship, supports this idea. Yet, from the moment it was rediscovered in 1902, scholars and visitors alike have noted that the Osiraion does not fit neatly into the artistic or architectural style of Seti's reign. The floor of the chamber is sunk well below ground level, creating the impression of a temple half submerged in the earth. A central island, ringed by a trench that may once have held water, is framed by towering megalithic pillars of red granite. The effect is stark, almost otherworldly. To some, it evokes a symbolic underworld, an architectural representation of the Duat, the Egyptian realm of the dead, where Osiris ruled. But the anomalies continue. The sheer size of the granite blocks and the simplicity of their arrangement contrasts with the refined artistry of Seti's temple above. It has led some to suggest that the Osiraion is far older, perhaps repurposed or rededicated by Seti rather than constructed anew. If so, who built it, and when? Mainstream Egyptology maintains that the Osiraion is indeed from the New Kingdom, around the 13th century BCE, built under Seti's orders. The unusual style, they argue, may reflect deliberate archaism, a conscious effort to evoke the primeval waters of creation and Egypt's earliest myths. The presence of inscriptions from Seti's time lends weight to this, yet alternative interpretations persist. Some point to the construction techniques and the size of the blocks as evidence that the Osiraion belongs to an earlier phase of Egyptian or even pre-Egyptian history. They argue that it resembles the megalithic traditions seen in places like Malta or even the Andes more than it does the refined temples of the New Kingdom. Could the Osiraion be a surviving fragment of a civilization older than dynastic Egypt, later adopted into the Osiris cult? There are also the curious connections to water. When first excavated, the Osiraion was flooded, its central chamber filled with groundwater. Some scholars believe this was intentional, that the temple was designed to incorporate water as part of its symbolism, a physical manifestation of the primeval waters from which creation emerged. If true, the structure would not only have been ceremonial but deeply cosmological, a temple embodying Egypt's most ancient myths in stone and water. But here, too, questions arise. Was the flooding truly intentional, or simply the result of a rising water table over time? Could the Osirion have been designed for purposes beyond ritual? A kind of reservoir, a hidden chamber for unknown functions, or something else altogether? The mystery deepens when considering Abydos itself. This was no ordinary site in Egypt. For millennia, Abydos was considered one of the most sacred places in the land, a pilgrimage center where pharaohs built monuments to link themselves to the god of the underworld. If the Osirian predates Seti, it may have been precisely this ancient aura that drew the king to build his temple here, fusing his legacy with a structure already shrouded in mystery. Speculative theories venture even further. Some propose that the Osirian is evidence of advanced ancient knowledge, an echo of a forgotten epic, perhaps linked to the fabled Zep Tepi, or first time, when gods or semi-divine rulers were said to have walked the earth. Others suggest that its unusual construction might hint at purposes beyond funerary ritual, perhaps astronomical, hydraulic, or even technological functions we can no longer discern. While such ideas remain outside the mainstream, they highlight the persistent sense of enigma that the Osirian inspires. To stand within its walls is to feel the weight of its stones pressing against time itself. The granite pillars rise like silent guardians, their surfaces unadorned, their presence immense. Unlike the richly carved temples above ground, the Osirion speaks not in words or images, but in raw mass and silence. It is as though the builders intended not to narrate their beliefs, but to embody them in enduring stone, a structure that would last as long as memory itself. And yet, memory has faltered. We do not know, with certainty, who first conceived of this place, or what its original purpose truly was. Was it Seti's creation, a brilliant evocation of myth and eternity? Or was Seti merely inheriting something already ancient, weaving his story into a structure whose origins were already lost to time? The Osirian sits half-hidden beneath the sands, water lapping at its foundations, its secrets intact. In its shadow, we are reminded that even in a land as studied as Egypt, mysteries endure. The questions it poses are simple, yet profound. Was this temple the vision of a single king, or the echo of an age we no longer remember? And if the latter, what does that mean for the history we think we know? As with so many of the world's ancient structures, the Osirian resists closure. It invites us instead into the space between certainty and wonder, where the weight of stone and the silence of ages compel us to keep asking, keep searching. Perhaps, like the god it honors, the Osirion guards a passage between worlds, not just between life and death, but between what we know and what remains hidden, just beyond reach. From the sands of Abydos, where the Osirian rises out of the earth in defiance of both time and explanation, our journey carries us far south, down the length of the African continent. Here, among the rolling hills of Mpumalanga in South Africa, lies another site that sparks debate, intrigue, and no small measure of wonder. Unlike the grand temples of Egypt, or the monumental terraces of the Andes, this place is quiet, unassuming. At first glance, it appears nothing more than a scattering of stones across the Highveld. But look closer, and a pattern emerges, an arrangement so precise that some have called it Africa's Stonehenge. This is Adam's calendar. Perched on a grassy plateau overlooking the dramatic cliffs of the Barberton mountain range, Adam's calendar is a circle of standing stones, many weathered and half-collapsed, but still forming a recognizable ring. Two taller monoliths stand near the center, flanking a flat stone that resembles an altar. From certain angles, these central markers appear aligned with the rising and setting sun, marking the passage of solstices and equinoxes. In this quiet landscape, where the wind rustles through tall grasses and birds circle overhead, it is easy to sense that this was once a place of meaning, of ritual, of alignment between earth and sky. Mainstream archaeology approaches the site cautiously. Some researchers argue that Adam's calendar is little more than a cattle kraal, an enclosure used by herders in relatively recent centuries. They point out that the stones are not finely dressed, and their arrangement could be coincidental, shaped as much by erosion and movement over time as by deliberate design. In this view, the site's antiquity is modest and its mystery overstated. Yet other voices challenge this interpretation. Independent researchers and alternative historians claim that Adam's calendar is far older, perhaps tens of thousands of years. They point to the site's apparent alignments with celestial events, suggesting it once functioned as a calendar or observatory. If true, this would place its creation long before written history in the region, and possibly before the rise of many of the world's better-known ancient civilizations. Could this circle of stones represent one of the oldest human-made structures on Earth? The debate hinges on evidence that is tantalizing but inconclusive. Some stones do appear aligned with solstices, equinoxes, and cardinal directions. Others seem to echo alignments with star systems visible in prehistoric skies. Yet natural rock formations can sometimes mimic human intention. Are these alignments the product of deliberate design, or are we imposing patterns upon chance arrangements? Adding to the intrigue are the surrounding landscapes. Scattered across the Mpumalanga Hills are thousands of stone ruins, circular walls, terraces, and enclosures that stretch for miles. Many are assumed to be remnants of cattle farming communities that flourished here a few centuries ago. But some researchers argue that their scale, distribution, and erosion suggest a much older origin, perhaps remnants of a forgotten culture. In this context, Adam's calendar becomes not an isolated curiosity, but the centerpiece of a vast and ancient network. Local traditions offer little clarity. Unlike Egypt's hieroglyphs or Mesopotamia's tablets, southern Africa's prehistoric past left few written records. Oral histories in the region speak of sacred places, of sites linked to ancestors or spirits, but direct references to Adam's calendar itself are scarce. The silence of tradition leaves the stones to speak for themselves, their message obscured by the erosion of time. Speculative theories push further still. Some claim that Adam's calendar was not only a calendar but a site of advanced knowledge, perhaps used to map the heavens, measure time, or even harness natural energies. A few fringe interpretations go so far as to link it to lost civilizations, suggesting it predates Egypt, Sumer, or even Gobekli Tepe. In these narratives, the stones become relics of a forgotten epoch, when early humans, or beings beyond humanity, first measured the rhythms of the cosmos. Such ideas remain controversial, unverified by mainstream archaeology. And yet the power of the site lies precisely in this ambiguity. Unlike more thoroughly excavated monuments, Adam's calendar resists easy classification. It sits quietly on its plateau, its stones weathered and unadorned, leaving us to wonder whether they are fragments of ordinary life or extraordinary purpose. To stand among the stones is to feel the weight of both possibilities. On one hand, they may be no more than the remains of pastoral enclosures, their significance exaggerated by the human tendency to see order in randomness. On the other, they may mark one of the earliest attempts to align human life with the movements of the sun and stars, a window into a chapter of prehistory almost entirely erased. The contrast itself is telling. In places like the Osirayan or Ollantaytambo, mystery arises from grandeur, the sheer scale and sophistication of the structures. Here, the mystery comes from simplicity, from the question of whether these quiet stones hide a story far older than we realize. If Adam's calendar is as ancient as some propose, it would force us to reconsider the timeline of human development, suggesting that organized, astronomically aware societies existed in southern Africa long before history tells us they did. And so, the stones remain, caught between worlds, between archaeology and legend, between pastoral simplicity and cosmic design. Their meaning is unresolved, their origins debated, their purpose unclear. Were they calendar stones, cattle pens, or something more profound? Did they mark the turning of the seasons, the passage of stars, or perhaps the beginning of a story we have yet to uncover? As the sun sets over the Barberton Mountains, shadows lengthen across the circle. The central stones catch the fading light, their alignment hinting perhaps at intention. The air grows still, and the plateau falls quiet as if holding its breath. In this silence, the mystery of Adam's calendar deepens, and we are left to wonder, are we standing at the remnants of a simple pastoral structure, or at the threshold of humanity's forgotten past, one that stretches far beyond the reach of recorded time? From the windswept plateaus of southern Africa, where Adam's calendar lies silent under the open sky, we return once more to the highlands of the Andes. Here, in the city of Cusco, the ancient heart of the Inca Empire, there stands a monument that challenges our understanding not only of engineering, but of human will. Towering above the city on a rocky hill lies Sacsayhuamán, a fortress of stone whose walls appear almost impossible. The first impression is overwhelming. Vast, zigzagging ramparts stretch across the hillside, their blocks fitted together with uncanny precision. Some of these stones rise over 8 meters tall and weigh more than 100 tons, yet they slot into place so perfectly that not even a blade of grass can slide between them. Their faces are not uniform, but polygonal, cut into irregular shapes that interlock like pieces of a colossal puzzle. It is a design both beautiful and baffling, as though the builders sought not simplicity but complexity, challenging themselves to fit each stone uniquely into the whole. Mainstream archaeology attributes Sacsayhuamán to the Incas of the 15th century. Historical sources confirm that laborers by the thousands were mobilized to quarry, transport, and position these stones, creating not only the massive walls, but a complex of ceremonial and military structures. The site functioned as both fortress and sacred space, guarding Cusco while also serving as the stage for religious ceremonies and festivals. In this explanation, the stones are a testament to Inca organization, ingenuity, and sheer determination. Yet even within this framework, questions abound. How did workers transport such colossal stones from quarries miles away, across rugged terrain and steep inclines? Ropes, ramps, and manpower are the common answers, but can such methods fully account for the precision with which the blocks were fitted? Why did the builders choose to carve each stone into irregular shapes when rectangular blocks would have been easier to produce and place? The mystery deepens when considering the earthquake resistance of these walls. Cusco lies in a seismically active region, yet Sacsayhuamán has withstood centuries of tremors that toppled Spanish colonial buildings nearby. The interlocking stones seem to absorb and distribute the force of earthquakes, flexing without breaking, a feat of ancient engineering that modern architects still study with awe. Was this design the result of long trial and error, or did the builders possess knowledge of seismic principles beyond what we might expect of their time? Local tradition adds further layers of intrigue. Some legends claim that Sacsayhuamán was not entirely Inca, but the work of an earlier forgotten people. The Incas themselves, when asked about the origin of these walls, sometimes spoke of giants who once inhabited the land. To them, Sacsayhuamán was the work of the gods, inherited rather than invented. Could there be truth hidden within these myths? An older phase of construction, predating the Inca Empire, later expanded and completed by their hands? The stones themselves seem to invite such speculation. Their sheer scale and irregular geometry differ markedly from other Inca masonry, which often employs smaller, more uniform blocks. At Sacsayhuamán, by contrast, we see some of the largest stones used in any pre-Columbian construction, fitted with a precision that appears almost machine-like. Was this simply the pinnacle of Inca stonework, or does it point to a tradition that extended further back in time? Speculative theories have flourished around these walls. Some propose that the builders possessed advanced techniques, perhaps lost tools or knowledge of stone softening processes, that allowed them to shape and move massive blocks with relative ease. Others point to possible astronomical alignments, suggesting that Sacsayhuamán was not merely a fortress, but also an observatory, its walls echoing the movements of the sun, stars, and seasons. Fringe interpretations go further still, hinting at the involvement of civilizations older than recorded history, or even the intervention of forces beyond the human. Such ideas remain outside the scope of mainstream scholarship, but they reflect the profound sense of awe that Sacsayhuamán inspires, an awe that can make ordinary explanations feel somehow insufficient. And yet, perhaps the true mystery lies not in the exotic, but in the simple. Even if the Incas did rely solely on manpower, ramps, and ropes, their achievement remains staggering. Imagine thousands of workers carving, dragging, and fitting stones that weighed as much as blue whales, shaping them into a fortress that would stand for centuries. Does that not, in itself, verge on the miraculous? As the sun sets over Cusco, the walls of Sacsayhuamán cast long shadows across the grass. The stones glow with a golden light, their massive faces etched by time but still standing as they always have. Looking up at them, one cannot help but feel small, caught between admiration and perplexity. These walls are not silent. They speak, not in words, but in presence. They remind us that human ingenuity is capable of wonders, and that history holds secrets not easily unlocked. So we are left to ask, who first conceived of Sacsayhuamán? And why did they choose to build in such a monumental way? Was this purely an Inca creation, the culmination of their mastery of stone? Or does it carry echoes of a deeper past, one obscured by legend and time? And most of all, what knowledge, practical, spiritual, or otherwise, was encoded in these walls, knowledge that may now be lost to us? The fortress of Sacsayhuamán looms over Cusco as it has for centuries, enduring earthquakes, invasions, and the erosion of time. Yet, it endures as more than just stone. It endures as a question, a riddle carved into the mountainside, daring us to seek answers. And like so many ancient structures across the world, the deeper we search, the more elusive those answers become. From the colossal stones of Sacsayhuamán, high above Cusco, we journey further south across the Andean Plateau. Here, nearly 13,000 feet above sea level, lies a landscape both stark and breathtaking, a place where the thin air sharpens every sound and the horizon seems endless. At the southern edge of Lake Titicaca, in what is today Bolivia, stands one of the most enigmatic archaeological sites in the world, Tiwanaku. The ruins appear scattered across a wind-swept plain, their geometry stark against the barren earth. Massive stone gateways, broken monoliths, and carefully cut blocks lie in silence, as though the remnants of some ancient blueprint abandoned long ago. At the heart of it all stands the Gateway of the Sun, a single stone slab weighing around 10 tons, carved with intricate figures and mysterious symbols. It is both imposing and strangely lonely, a sentinel of a civilization that vanished long before the rise of the Incas. Archaeologists date the Tiwanaku culture to roughly 400 to 1000 CE, identifying it as one of the great pre-Columbian civilizations of South America. It was a center of trade, religion, and power, influencing vast regions of the Andes. The people of Tiwanaku left behind terraced agriculture, advanced irrigation, and a style of art and architecture distinctly their own. For many scholars, these ruins are the visible traces of a sophisticated highland society whose knowledge of farming and water management allowed them to thrive in a harsh environment. Yet, as with so many ancient places, the questions outnumber the answers. Tiwanaku does not resemble other Andean sites. Its massive blocks, some weighing up to 130 tons, were quarried miles away and somehow transported across uneven terrain to this plateau. The stones were then cut with extraordinary precision, their edges sharp, their surfaces smooth, and in some cases fitted together with geometric exactness that seems almost modern. The most famous examples are the so-called H-blocks at nearby Pumapunku, where right angles appear so perfect that some have compared them to prefabricated pieces, as though the ruins were part of some vast modular design. How were these blocks cut, shaped, and aligned? Standard archaeological explanations point to stone hammers, patience, and ingenuity. But can such tools truly account for the razor-sharp edges, the precise holes, and the interlocking forms that remain visible today? Even more puzzling is the scale of Tiwanaku's construction. Why build so monumentally in such an inhospitable environment? At nearly 4,000 meters above sea level, this is a place of freezing nights, scarce oxygen, and unforgiving winds. Was Tiwanaku primarily a ceremonial center, a hub of trade, or something else entirely? The spiritual and symbolic dimensions of the site deepen the mystery. The carvings on the Gateway of the Sun depict the so-called staff god, surrounded by winged figures whose exact meaning has been lost. Some researchers argue that the imagery encodes astronomical knowledge, with the gateway aligned to solstices, or perhaps marking longer celestial cycles. Could Tiwanaku have functioned as an ancient observatory, a place where the heavens were mapped in stone? Others have proposed even more radical interpretations. In the early 20th century, some theorists suggested that Tiwanaku might be far older than the conventional timeline, perhaps dating back not just a few thousand years, but tens of thousands. They pointed to the weathering of the stones, to the enigmatic construction techniques, and to local legends that speak of gods descending to teach humanity. While such claims remain outside mainstream scholarship, they illustrate the enduring sense that Tiwanaku belongs to a deeper layer of history, one not fully captured in textbooks. Perhaps the greatest enigma of all is the sudden collapse of this civilization. Around the year 1000, Tiwanaku declined rapidly, its monumental structures abandoned, its people dispersing. Environmental change, drought, or internal upheaval are often cited as explanations. Yet the silence of these ruins, the abruptness of the disappearance, leaves open the unsettling question: what really happened here? Standing amid the ruins, it is not difficult to imagine a place charged with power. The stones seem more than architectural, they feel symbolic, as though each cut and angle carried meaning beyond utility. Was this a center of ritual, where knowledge of the cosmos was translated into stone? Was it a gathering place for a people who sought to connect heaven and earth on the highest plateau of the Andes? Or was Tiwanaku part of a greater story, a chapter in human history that has been mostly erased? Today, the wind sweeps through the ruins, carrying dust across the plateau. The Gateway of the Sun, with its weathered carvings, continues to face the rising dawn, as it has for more than a millennium. Yet despite decades of study, its symbols remain undeciphered, its builders half hidden in shadow. Perhaps the true lesson of Tiwanaku is not only what we see, but what we do not. For each block that stands, there are missing pieces. For every carving, an unspoken meaning. And in the spaces between, the unanswered questions linger. Why did this city rise where it did? How were its stones shaped and aligned? And most of all, what knowledge did its builders possess? Knowledge now lost to time, leaving behind only whispers carved in stone. Tiwanaku endures not just as a ruin, but as a riddle. And like so many places across the ancient world, its silence may be the loudest voice of all, reminding us that history is not a closed book, but a story still being written. From the windswept altiplano of the Andes, where the great stones of Tiwanaku stand silent, we turn now to a very different kind of monument. Not one that rises above the landscape, visible from miles away, but one that lies hidden deep below the earth. Beneath the bustling modern streets of Malta, concealed for millennia, is a place unlike any other, the Hypogeum of Ħal-Saflieni. At first glance, the setting is unremarkable, a quiet neighborhood in the town of Paula. But just below the surface lies a labyrinth carved into limestone, a subterranean structure stretching across 3 levels, its chambers connected by winding passageways and descending staircases. Archaeologists date its creation to around 4000 BCE, placing it among the oldest underground temples in the world. Yet the deeper one ventures into its dark corridors, the harder it becomes to understand who built it, why they built it, and how such a place came to be forgotten for thousands of years. The Hypogeum is no simple cave. It was carefully carved by human hands, its walls smoothed and shaped into flowing curves. Some chambers mimic the architecture of above-ground temples, with columns and lintels hewn directly from the bedrock. Others open into wide spaces, acoustically tuned to create strange, resonant echoes. The most famous of these is the Oracle Room, where a spoken word reverberates with a haunting intensity, carrying through the entire underground complex. Could this have been intentional, designed to amplify ritual chants or priestly proclamations? Then there are the burials. Excavations revealed the remains of more than 7,000 individuals interred within its chambers. This was no mere tomb. It was a necropolis, a city of the dead, where life and death intertwined. Yet who were these people, and what kind of society required such a vast underground complex? Malta's known Neolithic culture, the builders of the island's megalithic temples, must have been responsible. And yet, there are elements of the Hypogeum that remain unexplained. For one, the sheer sophistication of its construction raises questions. How did a Neolithic society, without metal tools, carve out such a vast subterranean labyrinth? The limestone is soft enough to be worked with stone tools, yes, but the precision of the chambers, the symmetry of certain features, and the subtle architectural flourishes suggest more than simple necessity. Some archaeologists argue that the builders must have had not only the skill, but also a deep symbolic or ritual motivation, an unseen blueprint guiding their hand. And what of its acoustics? Studies have shown that the Oracle Room resonates at a frequency of around 110 Hz, a tone that can induce unusual psychological and physiological effects in listeners. Was this discovery accidental, or were the builders intentionally harnessing sound as part of their rituals? Could the Hypogeum have been not only a tomb, but also a kind of instrument designed to alter consciousness, to bridge the gap between the living and the dead, or even between humanity and the divine? The mysteries deepen when we consider the artifacts found within. Among them are figurines unlike anything else in Malta. The most famous, known as the Sleeping Lady, depicts a corpulent female figure lying on her side upon a couch. To some, she represents a goddess of fertility, a symbol of life and renewal in a place of death. Others see in her something more enigmatic, a reminder that the beliefs of this ancient culture remain largely beyond our grasp. And then there are the bones themselves. Reports from early excavations noted unusual skeletal remains, elongated skulls that sparked speculation of a people distinct from the wider Neolithic population of the Mediterranean. These claims, controversial and often dismissed, have fueled fringe theories about the Hypogeum being linked to a forgotten race, perhaps even to the giants or otherworldly beings mentioned in Malta's folklore. While mainstream archaeology maintains a cautious stance, the whispers of such findings have kept alive the idea that the Hypogeum conceals truths stranger than we are prepared to accept. Legends, too, weave their way into the story of Ħal-Saflieni. Some tales speak of deep, hidden passages connecting the Hypogeum to other parts of the island, or of explorers who entered and never returned. In the 20th century, rumors circulated of school children who vanished within its depths, though no evidence ever confirmed the story. Such accounts blur the line between fact and folklore, yet they underscore the aura of dread and wonder that surrounds this place. Even in its rediscovery, the Hypogeum retains an air of the accidental, almost as if it wanted to remain hidden. It was uncovered in 1902 not by scholars, but by workers digging for a cistern. For thousands of years it lay sealed beneath the earth, untouched, forgotten by history. What knowledge, what rituals, what beliefs were entombed with it in that long silence? Today, access to the Hypogeum is strictly limited to protect its fragile microclimate and preserve its walls. Visitors step carefully through narrow passageways, guided by artificial light, their voices hushed as though in a cathedral. And in a way, it is a cathedral, a place of reverence, though one whose purpose remains veiled in mystery. Was the Hypogeum simply a necropolis, a place to honor and bury the dead? Was it a temple, where rituals of sound and darkness guided initiates into altered states of being? Or was it something more, a structure with purposes we cannot even begin to imagine? The silence of the chambers seems to resist easy answers. It invites us instead to wonder, to imagine, to stand in the oracle room and whisper a word, hearing it echo back as though the stones themselves were speaking, to gaze upon the sleeping lady and ask what dreams she embodies, to contemplate the thousands who were laid to rest here and the civilization that vanished, leaving only this subterranean riddle behind. The Hypogeum of Ħal-Saflieni is a reminder that not all mysteries lie in towering monuments or mountain fortresses. Some are hidden below our feet, waiting in the dark. And, as with so many of the world's ancient structures, perhaps the real question is not what we have found, but what still remains buried just beyond reach. From the hidden depths of Malta's Hypogeum, carved in silence beneath the earth, we return once more to the surface. This time to a land where stone does not conceal itself, but towers boldly toward the sky. In the fertile Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, framed by mountains and sunlit skies, lies the ancient city of Baalbek. Today, its ruins testify to the grandeur of Roman architecture. But among the colonnades and temples stands something older, stranger, and infinitely more puzzling: the massive stone blocks known as the Trilithon. At first glance, Baalbek is unmistakably Roman. The Temple of Jupiter once dominated the landscape, its towering columns some of the largest ever erected in antiquity. To this day, 6 of them still rise, each more than 20 meters tall, dwarfing everything around them. But beneath this familiar layer of history lies something that seems almost out of place: a set of 3 stone blocks forming part of the temple's platform. Each measures around 19 meters long, 4 meters high, and 3 meters wide. Each weighs in the range of 800 tons. They rest side by side, aligned with breathtaking precision. Collectively, they are known as the Trilithon. How were such colossal blocks cut, transported, and raised into position more than 5 meters above the ground? To put their size into perspective, the largest stones used in the Egyptian pyramids weigh around 80 tons, 1/10 the mass of a single trilithon block. Even in modern construction, moving an 800-ton monolith would require specialized equipment. And yet, here they stand, fitted into place with a mastery that leaves no room for error. Mainstream archaeology attributes their construction to Roman engineers during the 1st century CE, part of the ambitious project of transforming Baalbek into Heliopolis, the city of the sun. Roman ingenuity, after all, was legendary. They raised aqueducts, amphitheaters, and temples across the empire. It is not impossible that they used rollers, cranes, and manpower to move the trilithon, and yet doubts remain. For one, the Romans were unparalleled stone builders, but nowhere else in their vast empire did they attempt blocks of this scale. Why here in this remote valley did they choose to employ stones 10 times heavier than those they typically used? Could these blocks have belonged to an earlier, pre-Roman phase of construction, upon which the Romans later built their grand temple complex? The surrounding quarries add more to the mystery. Just a short distance away lies the stone of the pregnant woman, a single block weighing an estimated 1,000 tons, larger even than the trilithon stones. And more recently, an even bigger block was found beneath it, weighing over 1,600 tons. Both remain unfinished, still embedded in the bedrock, as though abandoned mid-project. Who began cutting these enormous stones, and why were they left behind? Were they part of a plan that proved impossible even for the builders to complete? Legends have long swirled around Baalbek. Some local traditions claim the site was originally built by giants. Others connect it to the biblical figure of Cain, who, cast out after killing his brother, wandered until he raised Baalbek as a city of refuge. Still others point to King Solomon, suggesting the stones were part of his great building works, raised not by human effort, but by supernatural means. These stories may be folklore, yet they echo the same underlying question: who first conceived of moving such massive stones, and for what purpose? The mystery only deepens when considering the function of the trilithon. Was this immense foundation necessary for structural stability? Or did it serve some symbolic or ritual purpose now lost to time? Some researchers have speculated that Baalbek's platform may have begun as a much older sacred site, reused and repurposed by successive civilizations: Phoenician, Greek, Roman. Each added their mark, but perhaps none truly understood the origins of those deepest, heaviest stones. Speculative theories, as always, extend further. A few propose that the trilithon demonstrates a lost technology of stone moving, a technique forgotten long before the Romans arrived. Others suggest that the site may have been chosen for its astronomical alignments, or even for energetic properties tied to its massive stone base. More radical interpretations go so far as to link Baalbek to ancient advanced civilizations, or even to visitors from beyond, ideas that remain well outside the bounds of archaeology, but continue to fascinate those who stand before the stones and feel their overwhelming scale. And yet, perhaps the simplest explanation is the most humbling. Even if we accept that the Romans, or some earlier culture, used sheer manpower, ingenuity, and determination to quarry, move, and set these stones, does that not, in itself, verge on the miraculous? Imagine thousands of workers straining together, using ropes, levers, and ramps, guiding an 800-ton block slowly across the earth. Imagine the years, the coordination, the willpower required to achieve such a feat. That, too, is a kind of mystery, a testament to what human beings can achieve when driven by vision, faith, or necessity. As the sun sets over the Bika Valley, the trilithon glows with a warm, golden light. Tourists wander among the ruins, craning their necks at the towering columns, but those who pause at the base of the platform, gazing at the 3 massive stones, feel a different kind of awe. They are not ornate. They are not decorated. They are simply there, silent, immovable, unyielding. and in their silence they pose questions no less profound than any temple or text. Who first raised these stones? Why did they choose to build on such a colossal scale? And what knowledge, now forgotten, guided their hands? Baalbek, like so many sites scattered across our world, refuses to be reduced to a single explanation. Its stones carry stories written in weight and silence, stories that may never be fully translated. And perhaps that is the greatest mystery of all, that some monuments endure not to answer questions, but to ensure that the questions themselves will never fade. From the monumental stones of Baalbek, heavy and immovable in their silence, we journey now across oceans and continents to a very different kind of mystery. Instead of a foundation built from blocks that defy comprehension, we find a city hidden deep in the jungle, where stone seems less like brute weight and more like a vessel of memory, shaped into temples, adorned with carvings, whispering stories that even today remain only half understood. This is Palenque, one of the jewels of the ancient Maya world. Nestled in the lush hills of modern-day Chiapas, Mexico, Palenque does not immediately overwhelm with size. Compared to sprawling cities like Tikal or Teotihuacan, it is modest in scale. But what it lacks in vastness, it more than compensates with precision, artistry, and mystery. White limestone temples rise from the emerald canopy, their stairways climbing toward shrines that pierce the forest sky. Waterfalls cascade nearby, feeding streams that once nourished the city's people. The setting itself feels almost theatrical, as though chosen not only for practicality, but also for symbolism, beauty, and perhaps even cosmic design. The history of Palenque, as understood through archaeology, begins around the 3rd century BCE, though the city reached its peak between the 6th and 7th centuries AD, 8th centuries CE. It became a seat of power, ruled by dynasties whose names we can still read today, etched into stone glyphs. Kings such as Pakal the Great, whose reign transformed the city into a cultural and architectural marvel. Yet beyond the chronicles of dynasties and battles lies something harder to define, a sense that Palenque was more than just a political capital. Its buildings hint at deeper knowledge, astronomical, mathematical, even metaphysical. At the heart of the site stands the Temple of the Inscriptions, perhaps the most famous of Palenque's structures. From the outside, it appears as a stepped pyramid topped with a temple, similar to other Maya monuments. But in 1952, Mexican archaeologist Alberto Ruiz Luillier made a discovery that changed our understanding of the city forever. Beneath the temple, hidden by sealed passages, he uncovered a crypt containing the sarcophagus of Pakal the Great. The lid of the sarcophagus was covered in intricate carvings, a single image so rich in detail, so mysterious in its symbolism, that it has fueled debate for decades. To scholars of Maya iconography, the carving represents Pakal's journey into the underworld, a depiction rooted in complex cosmology. The king is shown descending into the jaws of Xibalba, framed by a world tree, surrounded by celestial and mythological motifs. But to others, the image appears strangely mechanical. Pakal seems to recline at an angle, hands poised on what look like controls, feet resting on pedals, as though he is piloting a machine. His hair streams behind him like flames, and the entire composition resembles, at least to some eyes, a figure inside a spacecraft. Is this simply a projection of modern imagination onto ancient art? Or could the Maya have encoded knowledge that we struggle to interpret within our own cultural lens? The mainstream explanation emphasizes ritual, symbolism, and religious narrative. The more speculative interpretations, sometimes called the ancient astronaut theory, see in Pakal's tomb an echo of something far more enigmatic. But the mysteries of Palenque extend beyond a single carving. The city itself was designed with an elegance that reveals advanced understanding of both engineering and the cosmos. The palace complex, with its distinctive four-story tower, features sophisticated aqueducts channeling water beneath its floors, evidence of hydraulic engineering far ahead of its time. Some temples are aligned to celestial events, suggesting careful observation of the skies and their cycles. Was Palenque merely a city, or was it also a kind of observatory, a place where heaven and earth were studied as one? The acoustics of its structures add another layer of intrigue. In certain chambers, sound resonates in peculiar ways, amplifying voices or creating echoes that seem almost deliberate. Could these effects have been designed to enhance rituals, to give priests and kings an aura of divine presence? Or might they point to a deeper exploration of vibration and resonance, a knowledge hinted at in other ancient sites around the world? And then there is the jungle itself, which still hides much from view. Only a fraction of Palenque's total area has been excavated. The ruins we see today may represent as little as 10% of the city's original size. What lies beneath the thick blanket of trees? More temples? More tombs? Perhaps even answers to the riddles that have haunted us for decades. Legends among local Maya communities speak of Palenque not just as a royal seat, but as a sacred place tied to the gods themselves. The city's original name, La Kamha, means big water, a title that connects it to life, fertility, and cosmic renewal. Could it be that Palenque was designed as a kind of bridge between rulers and the divine, between earth and sky, between human memory and something far older? Standing before the Temple of the Inscriptions today, it is difficult not to wonder. The pyramid rises above the trees, its stone steps worn but enduring, while beneath lies a tomb that still sparks debate. Was Pakal truly just a king, or did his people view him as something more? A messenger, perhaps, or a traveler between worlds? And if so, was that role purely symbolic, or rooted in knowledge we no longer possess? Palenque, like Baalbek, like so many of the world's great mysteries, resists closure. Its beauty is undeniable, its artistry profound, its history partly illuminated and partly veiled. Yet its greatest gift may be the way it invites us to question, to look at a carving and see both religion and rocket ship, to walk its plazas and hear both echoes of ancient ritual and whispers of lost science. We are left, once again, with questions rather than answers. What knowledge did the Maya encode in their temples? What secrets still lie buried beneath the jungle floor? And most haunting of all, when we finally uncover them, will we recognize what we see? From the dense jungles of Mexico, where Palenque's temples rise like white sentinels above a green sea, we turn now to a very different landscape, one of stark contrast, where stone is set not amid lush forests, but atop a barren mountaintop, reaching toward the sky. High in the rugged terrain of southeastern Turkey stands Mount Nemrut, a place where history, myth, and mystery converge in a way unlike anywhere else on Earth. The mountain itself is imposing, over 2,100 meters above sea level, its slopes barren, wind-swept, and seemingly inhospitable. And yet, crowning its summit is one of the most enigmatic monuments of the ancient world, a massive artificial tumulus, a man-made peak of crushed rock, beneath which, it is said, lies the burial chamber of a long-forgotten king. Flanking this stony mound are colossal statues, seated figures once towering over the landscape, now toppled and broken by earthquakes and time. Their heads, each several tons in weight, lie scattered across the terrace, gazing in silence at the horizon. It was in the 1st century BCE that this extraordinary complex was created under the orders of Antiochus I Theos of Commagene, a ruler whose ambition seems to have rivaled his desire for immortality. Antiochus, ruling over a small but strategically placed kingdom wedged between Rome and Parthia, sought to craft a legacy that would transcend the fleeting tides of politics. He claimed descent from both Alexander the Great and the Persian king Darius, weaving together Greek and Persian traditions into a singular vision. Mount Nemrut was to be his eternal stage, a place where gods and kings would sit together, gazing forever upon the rising and setting sun. The statues reflect this unusual fusion. On one side sit the gods of the Greek pantheon, Zeus, Apollo, Hercules. Yet their names are joined with their Persian counterparts: Zeus Oromasdes, Apollo Mithras, Heracles Artagnius. Beside them sits Antiochus himself, depicted as an equal among deities, asserting his divine right and his eternal presence. This merging of traditions is not only political propaganda, but also a statement of cosmic order, an attempt to bind different cultures under the umbrella of one vision. And yet, for all the inscriptions and all the statues, the most tantalizing element of Mount Nemrut remains hidden. Beneath the summit's mound of crushed rock, Antiochus claimed to have prepared his own tomb, a burial chamber sealed away for eternity. Despite decades of archaeological work, it has never been located. Non-invasive surveys have detected cavities beneath the tumulus, suggesting that chambers may indeed exist. But to this day, no one has excavated them, partly due to the sheer scale of the mound, and partly because disturbing the site risks irreversible collapse. What lies within? Is it truly the resting place of Antiochus, filled with treasures that would rival the tombs of Egypt? Or could it be something more? Some have speculated that the hidden chamber might hold relics or records, lost knowledge from the intersection of Greek, Persian, and Near Eastern civilizations. Others wonder whether it was ever built at all, and whether the mound was instead a symbolic mountain, a man-made Olympus meant to house gods in spirit rather than a king in flesh. The astronomical alignments of Mount Nemrut add another dimension to the mystery. Scholars have noted that the eastern and western terraces of the monument appear oriented to the rising and setting of the sun at solstices and equinoxes. Some believe the site functioned as a kind of open-air observatory, where rituals were conducted in harmony with celestial cycles. In this interpretation, Antiochus's monument was not only a tomb but also a cosmic stage, a place where earthly and heavenly orders met. Could it be that the colossal statues and the tumulus were part of a larger design, one that sought to fix Antiochus himself within the eternal rhythm of the cosmos? Yet questions linger. Why build such a monumental complex in so remote a location? The summit of Mount Nemrut is not easily accessible, even today. Was its isolation deliberate, meant to elevate the king above the world, closer to the heavens? Or was it part of an older tradition, one that predates Antiochus, tapping into a more ancient sacred geography of mountains as divine thresholds? And what of the statues themselves? Their sheer size, heads alone reaching 2 to 3 meters in height, suggests immense labor and planning. How were they transported to the summit, carved with such precision and arranged in seated formation at over 2,000 meters above sea level? The logistics alone remain staggering. Some more speculative voices have wondered whether Mount Nemrut, like other ancient sites, may preserve echoes of forgotten technologies or knowledge. Could the tomb chamber, if it exists, reveal texts or artifacts that challenge our understanding of the Hellenistic world? Could it even connect to broader mysteries of sacred architecture across continents? These are questions that remain unanswered, not because scholars have dismissed them, but because the very heart of the mountain remains sealed. For now, what greets the visitor is a haunting tableau. Massive stone heads scattered across the terraces, their features weathered yet still regal, eyes fixed on horizons that mark the eternal dance of day and night. The mountain air is thin. the silence broken only by the wind. At sunrise and sunset, when the statues are bathed in shifting light, the effect is profoundly otherworldly. It is easy in such moments to feel that this mountaintop was indeed chosen as a place where gods and kings might share eternity. And yet the mystery persists. Is Antiochus truly buried there, resting unseen beneath the tumulus? Or is the tomb an illusion, a promise meant to inspire awe rather than conceal reality? Might future excavations one day reveal a hidden chamber, or will Mount Nemrut continue to guard its secret, as it has for 2,000 years? The stones remain silent, the mound undisturbed. But as with so many of the world's unexplained monuments, it is not certainty that endures but wonder. And perhaps that was always Antiochus's intention, that his mountain, his gods, his image carved in stone would provoke questions that outlast kingdoms. What lies beneath the summit of Mount Nemrut? A tomb, a treasure, a message, or simply the silence of stone? For now, no one can say. But the mystery remains, waiting perhaps for another age to uncover it. From the windswept summit of Mount Nemrut, where colossal statues once gazed toward the rising sun, we return now to the verdant lowlands of Mexico, to a site where stone and rhythm converge in ways both awe-inspiring and enigmatic. Nestled in the humid hills of Veracruz lies El Tajín, a city that thrived centuries before the arrival of the Spanish, yet whose origins and purpose remain partly obscured by time and vegetation. At first glance, El Tajín captivates with its geometry and scale. Unlike many Mesoamerican cities where temples and pyramids climb skyward as solitary sentinels, El Tajín spreads horizontally, its plazas, ball courts, and stepped pyramids forming a complex tapestry of public space. The most iconic structure is the Pyramid of the Niches, rising 6 stories with nearly 365 small niches carved into its limestone facade, a number strikingly close to the solar year. Its design seems deliberate, precise, and perhaps astronomical, hinting that the builders were not only architects, but keen observers of the heavens. El Tajín flourished between roughly 600 and 1200 CE, serving as a major center for the Totonac people. Unlike larger empires, it seems to have relied less on monumental political conquest and more on ceremonial and cultural authority. Thousands of buildings, palaces, ball courts, and ceremonial platforms populate the site. Among them are over 17 ball courts, a concentration unparalleled in the pre-Columbian world, suggesting that the Mesoamerican ball game was not merely a sport, but a ritual deeply tied to social, political, and perhaps even cosmic cycles. What sets El Tajín apart from other ancient cities is its architectural ingenuity. The Pyramid of the Niches, for instance, aligns with sunrise and sunset at specific times of the year, creating dramatic light and shadow effects across its facade. The niches themselves, evenly spaced and deeply recessed, cast patterns that shift with the sun, illuminating the pyramid in a choreography of light. Was this an intentional calendar, a monument to celestial cycles? Or was it designed for ritual spectacle, where sunlight itself became a medium of power and communication? The city's walls and buildings are adorned with intricate carvings, many depicting figures in motion, dancers, ball players, and priests, some wielding ceremonial objects, others performing gestures that remain cryptic. These images suggest that ritual was the heartbeat of El Tajín, yet the meaning behind them is elusive. Scholars have debated whether they encoded mythology, political authority, or secret knowledge accessible only to the initiated. Some carvings depict figures with unusual proportions or exaggerated features, which have sparked speculation about symbolic representation, altered states, or even lost cultural codes now incomprehensible to us. El Tajin's ball courts themselves are objects of fascination. The bas-reliefs along their walls depict scenes that are often violent, portraying decapitation, sacrifice, and other ritual acts. But why such an extraordinary concentration of ball courts here, more than in any other Mesoamerican city? Was this city a kind of ceremonial capital for the ball game? A hub where the movements of players mirrored cosmic patterns? Or was there something deeper, something that tied sport, ritual, and celestial observation together in ways we have yet to decode? The site also offers hints of engineering that challenge modern understanding. Its drainage systems and foundations reveal sophisticated water management designed to withstand the heavy rains of the Veracruz lowlands. Yet some features, particularly the precise alignment of certain plazas and the sheer volume of carved stone, suggest techniques that remain difficult to fully explain. How did the builders coordinate such complexity without written blueprints as we know them today? How did they manage large-scale construction in a city of uneven terrain, dense jungle, and unpredictable weather? As with many ancient structures, El Tajin invites questions about its spiritual dimensions. Local legends describe the city as sacred, a place where the gods walked, where the dead communed with the living, and where cosmic order was enacted in stone and ritual. Some researchers argue that the architectural alignments, the pyramid niches, and the ballgame courts were part of a symbolic network that encoded knowledge of astronomy, time, and human experience. Others have suggested more speculative theories, that El Tajin might preserve echoes of an advanced understanding of cycles, energy, or cosmology, remnants of knowledge that the modern world no longer comprehends. Even the city's decline adds to its mystery. By the 13th century, El Tajin was abandoned, leaving behind temples, pyramids, and ball courts to be reclaimed by the jungle. Scholars cite a combination of environmental stress, warfare, and political fragmentation. But the abruptness of its decline and the meticulous care with which the city was constructed leaves lingering questions. Why would a society capable of such planning vanish so completely? And what secrets were lost along with it, buried under centuries of soil and vegetation? Standing before the Pyramid of the Niches today, the interplay of shadow and sunlight still evokes the power of its original builders. The niches seem to shimmer as the sun moves across the sky, casting fleeting patterns that may have been intended as messages or signs, visible only to those who knew where to look. The ball courts remain silent, yet one can almost imagine the echo of bouncing balls and chanting crowds, a performance both earthly and cosmic. El Tajin is not merely a city frozen in stone. It is a story etched in limestone, a dialogue between human ambition, ritual, and the sky itself. Its builders sought not only to live, but to encode their understanding of the world into every niche, every platform, every courtyard. And yet, despite centuries of study, the full measure of their knowledge eludes us. Why were the niches carved with such precision? Why this extraordinary concentration of ball courts? And what did the Totonac people know about time, the heavens, and ritual that we may never fully understand? The answers remain hidden, waiting among the stone terraces, under the jungle canopy, and in the interplay of light and shadow that has enchanted observers for generations. El Tajin endures as a testament to human creativity, a puzzle of geometry, astronomy, and ritual that refuses to be fully explained. And like so many other ancient structures around the world, it reminds us that some questions are meant to endure, inviting us to wonder, to explore, and to imagine the knowledge that once flourished and may yet be waiting to reveal itself. From the tropical lowlands of Veracruz, where the stepped pyramids of El Tajin capture sunlight in 1,000 niches, we journey now to an island nation in the Pacific, where ancient rulers left their mark not by reaching skyward, but by shaping the very earth itself. Here in Japan, across gently rolling plains and verdant hills, lie the Kofun burial mounds, monumental earthen structures whose scale and mystery continue to intrigue historians and archaeologists alike. Kofun, meaning ancient tomb, were constructed between the 3rd and 7th centuries CE during a period of state formation and social consolidation in Japan. From above, many take the form of enormous keyholes, Zenpo Koen Fun, a design so distinctive that it can be recognized even in modern satellite imagery. Others are circular, square, or uniquely shaped, each crafted with precision and imposing scale. Some measure over 400 meters in length, making them among the largest earthen constructions in the world. The sheer volume of earth, meticulously piled to form mounds hundreds of meters across, attests to a level of organization and labor management that is astonishing for the time. The Kofun were built for elite individuals, rulers whose authority and influence shaped the emerging Japanese state. Yet despite the abundance of these mounds, tens of thousands scattered across the islands, very few have been fully excavated. Many remain protected, their chambers untouched, a silence preserved for centuries. When excavations have occurred, they reveal stone-lined burial chambers, often containing bronze mirrors, ceremonial weapons, jade ornaments, and haniwa, clay figurines depicting warriors, animals, and houses. These artifacts hint at complex rituals and a society deeply invested in the afterlife, yet they answer only part of the story. The most famous of these mounds, the Daisen Kofun in Osaka, is attributed to Emperor Nintoku. Measuring approximately 486 meters in length, it dwarfs nearly every other ancient tomb worldwide. Constructed with multiple tiers of earth, surrounded by moats, and aligned with remarkable geometric precision, it is a feat of engineering that has prompted questions about the techniques and knowledge required to move such massive quantities of soil. How were these mounds built without modern machinery? How did the builders maintain structural stability and symmetry over such immense dimensions? And perhaps most intriguingly, why were they shaped with such deliberate and consistent patterns across regions separated by hundreds of kilometers? The Kofun are more than tombs. They are symbolic landscapes. Many appear strategically oriented along cardinal points, near rivers, or on elevated plains, suggesting a connection to celestial or terrestrial observation. Some researchers propose that these alignments may have had ritual significance, linking the tombs to the movement of the sun, the moon, or stars, an echo of astronomical awareness found in other ancient cultures worldwide. Could the Kofun reflect not just power on Earth, but also a cosmic order, embedding rulers within the architecture of the heavens? The haniwa figurines add another layer of enigma. Arranged atop the mounds and along their perimeters, they range from simple cylinders to intricate depictions of humans, animals, and even elaborate scenes of daily life. Were these purely decorative, or did they serve protective or ceremonial functions? Some scholars suggest that the figures were meant to guard the deceased, to animate the mound with spiritual presence, or to act as intermediaries between the living and the dead. Yet their variety and distribution remain puzzling, leaving us to wonder what hidden logic governed their placement. Despite centuries of study, the full extent of the Kofun's purpose and symbolism remains elusive. Excavations have been limited, partly due to cultural reverence for the deceased, partly because many mounds are difficult to access. Non-invasive techniques, ground-penetrating radar, aerial surveys, and satellite imagery have revealed vast subterranean chambers and internal structures far larger than expected. Some of these chambers are enormous stone complexes, suggesting the possibility of multiple interments or ceremonial use beyond simple burial. How much knowledge about construction, ritual, or cosmology remains locked beneath the earthen surface? Speculative interpretations have also emerged, fueled by the scale and mystery of the Kofun. Some suggest that these mounds encode information about lineage, territory, and political hierarchy that has been lost to history. Others note parallels with other megalithic cultures, massive tombs, geometric alignment, ritualistic figurines, raising questions about cross-cultural knowledge or universal architectural tendencies in human societies. Could these structures reflect principles or technologies we no longer fully grasp, preserved in soil and stone for future generations to decode? Even the act of building the Kofun evokes awe. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of laborers would have been required to move earth, fashion haniwa, and construct chambers over decades. How did these societies organize themselves to accomplish such feats? And what drove them to dedicate immense resources to monuments that were never meant to be lived in? Was it devotion to the afterlife, a statement of political power, or a combination of both? And what did the builders themselves know of the forces and rituals they were invoking, centuries before scientific understanding could explain the mechanics of earth and stone? Today, standing beside a Kofun, the viewer is struck not by ornamentation, but by presence. The mounds rise subtly yet commanding, covered in grass, with moats tracing their outlines. Haniwa scattered like sentinels. The silence is profound, broken only by the wind or the rustle of leaves, as though the tombs themselves demand contemplation. They do not shout their secrets. They wait, patient and immovable, challenging each observer to reconcile human ambition with the passage of time. The Kofun burial mounds are monuments to a society that understood power, ritual, and symbolism in ways we only partly comprehend. Their scale, precision, and enduring presence pose questions that persist across centuries. How were they built? What knowledge guided their construction? What spiritual or cosmic principles were encoded within their shapes, alignments, and figurines? And perhaps most tantalizingly, what else remains hidden beneath the earth, waiting silently for discovery? In their stillness, the Kofun invite wonder, a quiet, enduring mystery, reminding us that some of humanity's greatest creations were meant to endure not as answers, but as questions, patiently waiting for those who would seek them. From the verdant plains of Japan, where the Kofun burial mounds rise in geometric precision, we travel now to a land where stone and mud combine to form one of the most imposing monuments of the ancient Near East. In the southwestern plains of modern-day Iran, near the ancient city of Susa, lies the Choga Zanbil Ziggurat, a monumental temple complex that has stood for over 3,000 years, its massive tiers and steep stairways casting long shadows across the surrounding desert. Choga Zanbil was built around 1250 BCE by King Untashnapirisha of Elam, a civilization that flourished in what is now southwestern Iran. It is one of the few ziggurats outside Mesopotamia and remains the best preserved example of its kind, a testament to the vision and ambition of a ruler determined to create a sacred city worthy of the gods. The ziggurat itself rises in a series of 5 receding tiers, each covered in baked brick, giving the impression of a massive stairway reaching toward the heavens. At its summit, a temple once stood, dedicated to Inshushinak, the chief deity of Elam, serving as a bridge between the mortal and divine worlds. Walking toward Choga Zanbil today, one is struck by its scale. Each brick seems imbued with purpose, each layer meticulously aligned, forming a structure that dominates the flat landscape. The ziggurat's outer walls are adorned with inscriptions and decorative motifs, some in Elamite cuneiform, offering glimpses of religious rites and royal decrees. Yet, for all the historical evidence, much about Choga Zanbil remains inexplicable. How could such massive structures be constructed with the technology of the time? How were bricks molded, fired, and stacked into tiers so precise that millennia later they still retain their shape? The surrounding complex adds to the mystery. Choga Zanbil was not just a single pyramid-like structure. It was part of a broader sacred city enclosed by concentric walls containing smaller temples, shrines, and administrative buildings. Over 100 buildings once filled the enclosure, each aligned in relation to the ziggurat itself. Some scholars argue that the layout reflects cosmological principles, aligning with celestial events or cardinal points. Could Untashnapirisha have intended this city as a microcosm of the universe, embedding the heavens in the earth through architecture? Inside the ziggurat, chambers and stairways remain largely unexplored, partially because excavation risks destabilizing the ancient mud brick walls. Early digs revealed evidence of offerings, ceremonial artifacts, and traces of fire, suggesting that rituals were conducted on multiple levels. But the full purpose of the internal layout, the meaning of hidden spaces, and the possibility of secret chambers remain unknown. Were these purely functional, for priests to perform rites, or did they conceal knowledge, texts, relics, or objects that held significance lost to time? The scale and precision of Choga Zanbil have prompted further questions. Each tier required careful planning to ensure stability. The weight of upper levels could easily collapse lower ones if miscalculated. Yet, the builders succeeded, and their work has endured for millennia, despite earthquakes, climate, and human neglect. Could this reflect a sophisticated understanding of engineering and material science? Perhaps even knowledge passed down from earlier civilizations whose methods remain undocumented? There is also the question of the ziggurat's purpose beyond religion. Its monumental presence and strategic location near trade routes suggest that it might have functioned as a display of political power as much as spiritual devotion. Did Untashnapirisha intend to awe subjects and rivals alike, signaling divine favor and earthly authority through sheer architectural dominance? Or did the ziggurat serve as a hub for knowledge and ritual that has since faded from memory? Speculative theories occasionally surface, as they do with other ancient structures of mysterious origin. Some propose that the ziggurat's form encodes astronomical knowledge, marking solstices, equinoxes, or planetary alignments, much like the step pyramids of Mesoamerica. Others suggest that Choga Zanbil was part of a global pattern of sacred architecture, where societies independently developed monumental structures to express cosmological order and divine kingship. While such interpretations remain debated, they underscore the enduring fascination with a site that refuses to yield all its secrets. Even the materials themselves pose questions. Mud bricks, while abundant and practical, are far less durable than stone. Yet the builders of Choga Zanbil created a structure capable of withstanding centuries of exposure, using techniques to reinforce walls, improve drainage, and maintain stability. What knowledge guided these choices, and how was it transmitted to laborers over decades of construction? Standing at the base of Choga Zanbil today, the desert wind sweeps across the tiers, carrying the echoes of distant ceremonies. The ziggurat's silhouette rises dramatically against the horizon, a symbol of human ambition, devotion, and ingenuity. One can almost imagine the priests ascending its stairways, bringing offerings to the gods, their movements ritualized in time with the sun and stars. And yet, beneath the layers of baked brick, the full story remains hidden, awaiting discovery. Choga Zanbil reminds us that ancient monuments are more than relics. They are enduring questions carved in earth and stone. Why were the tiers constructed with such precision? What rituals took place atop the summit temple? And what secrets might remain within undiscovered chambers? How did the Elamites achieve this level of architectural sophistication without written blueprints or modern tools? The ziggurat stands, silent and imposing, a testament to ambition and faith. And like so many other unexplained structures around the world, it leaves us with a profound sense of wonder. For every brick, every tier, and every aligned wall challenges us to consider the ingenuity, belief, and knowledge of those who came before, and to ponder what remains hidden, waiting patiently beneath the surface of time. From the baked bricks and tiered sanctuaries of Choga Zanbil, where ancient rulers sought to reach the heavens and anchor themselves in the divine, we return to the Pacific, to a landscape far more fluid, yet no less enigmatic. Beneath the waves off the southern coast of Japan, near the island of Yonaguni, lies a formation that has captivated archaeologists, divers, and enthusiasts for decades: the Yonaguni Monument, a submerged structure of immense scale and peculiar geometry that challenges our understanding of both human history and natural processes. The monument sits approximately 5 to 40 meters beneath the East China Sea, just off the coast of Yonaguni Island. From above, it is invisible to the eye, yet underwater it reveals a series of terraces, steps, and platforms, carved from massive blocks of sandstone and mudstone. The largest platform stretches over 150 meters in length, while some of the steps are more than 2 meters high, forming a multi-level structure that seems to echo the design principles of man-made pyramids and ziggurats. The precision of the terraces, the near-perfect right angles, and the straight walls have led some observers to question whether this is a purely natural formation or evidence of an advanced prehistoric civilization now lost beneath the ocean. The debate over Yonaguni's origins began in earnest in 1986, when marine geologist Masaki Kimura brought international attention to the site. He argued that the structure is man-made, or at least shaped with human intervention, pointing to features that resemble steps, roads, and even what could be considered a massive pyramid at the edge of the formation. Kimura suggests that the monument may date back 10,000 years, a time before the end of the last ice age, when sea levels were significantly lower. If this is true, Yonaguni would predate all known monumental architecture in the world, including Egypt's pyramids and Mesopotamia's ziggurats. Yet the scientific community remains divided. Skeptics argue that the rock formations could have formed naturally through tectonic activity, erosion, and fracturing, creating the illusion of terraces and right angles. They note that sandstone is prone to fracturing in straight lines, and that some features could simply be coincidental. However, even critics acknowledge that the site exhibits a level of regularity and scale rarely observed in purely natural formations, and that certain features, such as a large platform with parallel walls, defy easy geological explanation. The monument's underwater setting adds layers of mystery. Its submersion suggests that if it were man-made, its creators lived during a time when this area was above sea level, potentially at the dawn of human civilization, in an era when our understanding of engineering and construction is limited to stone tools and small settlements. How could people of that time have moved massive stones, shaped terraces, and built structures that have withstood millennia of seismic activity, erosion, and submersion? The questions are as compelling as the site is enigmatic. Adding to the intrigue are features interpreted by some as signs of ritual or symbolic use. Kimura and other proponents have identified what appear to be steps leading to a platform, a stadium-like structure, and even channels that could have served ceremonial purposes or water management functions. Some divers report observing carvings resembling faces or animals, though the effects of erosion make such interpretations contentious. Could these have been designed as sacred spaces, arenas for ritual, or markers of astronomical alignment? Or are they artifacts of nature, interpreted through the lens of human imagination? The ocean currents, visibility, and seasonal changes also shape the experience of Yonaguni. At low tide or in clear waters, the monument appears sharply defined. In rougher conditions, it seems almost ethereal, a shadowed labyrinth of terraces and blocks blurring the line between natural and artificial. This fluidity reinforces the mystery, making it difficult to draw definitive conclusions, while simultaneously inspiring awe. To look upon Yonaguni is to confront the limits of human knowledge, and to ponder what may have been lost to rising seas, shifting continents, or forgotten civilizations. Some speculative theories push even further. Could Yonaguni be a remnant of a prehistoric society that flourished before written history, whose technology, culture, and knowledge were erased by cataclysmic sea level changes? Could it connect to legends of submerged lands like Mu or Lemuria, tales whispered in myth but tantalizingly aligned with the possibility of ancient coastal settlements now drowned beneath the ocean? While such ideas remain outside mainstream scholarship, they underscore the profound fascination Yonaguni exerts on those willing to question the conventional timeline of human development. At the same time, Yonaguni prompts reflection on the impermanence of civilization. Even if it is man-made, the monument is now cloaked by the sea, sculpted by waves, currents, and marine life. Its terraces have been smoothed, edges eroded, and fine details lost to time. It is a reminder that all human achievement is vulnerable to the forces of nature, yet also that some traces, whether stone, mound, or submerged monument, can endure, silently speaking across millennia. Diving among its terraces, one cannot help but feel a sense of scale and intention. Steps rise in uniformity, walls meet at right angles, and terraces create a rhythm of space that suggests planning and design. Even the surrounding geological formations seem to complement the structure, as if the landscape itself had been chosen for its capacity to host something monumental. And yet, the monument's full story remains just out of reach. How much has been lost? What did its creators intend for those who would come after? And perhaps most hauntingly, how many other structures like Yonaguni lie hidden beneath the world's oceans, waiting silently for rediscovery? The Yonaguni Monument challenges us to reconsider the boundaries between human endeavor and natural formation, between history and prehistory. It asks us to look deeper, to question assumptions, and to remain open to the extraordinary possibilities of human ingenuity. Its terraces, steps, and enigmatic platforms endure not only as stone, but as questions, inviting us to explore, to wonder, and to acknowledge that the ancient world may still hold secrets submerged in both water and time. From the submerged terraces of Yonaguni, where water conceals secrets of a possibly ancient civilization, we turn now to the rugged landscapes of the Mediterranean, to the island of Sardinia. Here, scattered across rolling hills, limestone plateaus, and coastal cliffs, rise enigmatic towers known as Nuraghe, stone structures that have endured for over 3 millennia, silent witnesses to a culture whose origins and purpose remain partially veiled in mystery. The Nuraghe are striking in their simplicity and durability. Most are conical towers constructed from massive blocks of basalt, granite, or limestone, carefully fitted without mortar. Their heights vary, some standing only a few meters tall, others reaching more than 20 meters, a testament to the ingenuity of the builders. These structures date back to the Bronze Age, around 1800 to 1200 BCE, and are unique to Sardinia, with over 7,000 documented across the island. From a distance, they resemble isolated fortresses. Up close, they reveal a labyrinth of internal chambers, corbelled ceilings, and spiral stairways that defy easy explanation. Walking among the Nuraghe, one is immediately struck by the precision of construction. Each stone seems intentionally placed, forming walls that curve inward as they rise, creating remarkable stability. Some Nuraghe feature multiple towers interconnected by walls or corridors, forming small complexes that suggest more than simple defensive purposes. Were these the homes of chieftains, military strongholds, or sacred spaces for ritual and ceremony? The answer remains elusive, inviting speculation and wonder. The interior of the larger Nuraghe is equally compelling. Corbelled chambers rise with an almost architectural elegance, allowing the roof to be supported without timber or metal reinforcements. Narrow stairways wind upward, sometimes leading to terraces or observation points. Certain complexes reveal evidence of communal spaces, suggesting social gatherings, storage, or ceremonial activity. The sophistication of these constructions indicates not only technical skill, but a deep understanding of geometry, balance, and durability, all achieved without the tools and technology that later civilizations would rely upon. One of the most intriguing aspects of Nuraghe is their sheer number and distribution. Why were thousands of these towers built across Sardinia? Many stand in isolation, while others cluster in strategic locations overlooking valleys, water sources, or trade routes. This pattern implies a networked society, perhaps coordinating defense, resource management, or religious activity. Some researchers suggest that the towers may have been used for signaling, possibly through smoke or fire, creating a communication network across the island long before modern technology. Could these silent sentinels have been part of a larger, sophisticated system whose full purpose is now lost to time? Archaeological findings offer tantalizing hints but few answers. Pottery, tools, and occasional human remains have been discovered within Nuraghe, suggesting domestic use alongside ceremonial or defensive functions. Yet the absence of written records from the Nuragic civilization leaves their motivations largely speculative. Did these structures represent political authority, spiritual devotion, or both? And why did the construction of Nuraghe cease, leaving behind a landscape dotted with abandoned towers that continue to dominate the Sardinian horizon? Some of the larger Nuraghe, such as Su Nuraxi in Barumini, reveal an even deeper level of sophistication. This UNESCO World Heritage Site consists of a central tower surrounded by a series of concentric walls and additional towers, forming a fortified complex that hints at social stratification, centralized planning, and ceremonial function. The discovery of intricate underground chambers, storage spaces, and evidence of metallurgy adds layers to the mystery, suggesting that the Nuragic people possessed knowledge of construction, organization, and material science that warrants admiration. Speculative interpretations of the Nuraghe also abound. Some propose that their alignment or location could have astronomical significance, marking solstices, equinoxes, or the movement of celestial bodies. Others suggest that the towers may preserve echoes of religious or spiritual knowledge, encoded in their geometry and placement. Could these ancient builders have been influenced by or connected to other Mediterranean cultures, exchanging ideas of architecture, ritual, and symbolism? Or did they develop independently, creating an island civilization whose ingenuity rivaled that of contemporaneous societies? The Nuraghe also invite reflection on endurance and legacy. Unlike structures built from softer materials, these towers have withstood earthquakes, erosion, and human interference for thousands of years. Their presence continues to shape Sardinia's identity, connecting modern inhabitants with an ancient past. Standing beside a Nuraghe, one is struck not only by the skill of its builders, but by the mystery that still surrounds them. How did they move massive stones with primitive tools? What social, spiritual, or defensive considerations guided their placement? And what might we learn if more of these structures were excavated, studied, and understood? Even today, the Nuraghe landscape evokes a sense of awe. From the hilltops, the towers rise like silent guardians over valleys and plains, their shadows stretching across olive groves and pastures. They appear at once deliberate and enigmatic, human-made yet harmoniously integrated with the natural terrain. Observers can almost imagine the lives of those who built them. The chieftains, warriors and priests who inhabited these spaces, whose daily existence was interwoven with these stone monuments. And yet, the purpose of many Nuraghe remains unresolved, leaving a landscape rich in history but resistant to definitive explanation. The Nuraghe remind us that ancient architecture can speak without words, conveying ideas of power, spirituality, and ingenuity across millennia. Their walls, stairways, and towers pose questions that remain unanswered. Why were so many constructed? How did their builders achieve such precision and durability? And what knowledge or traditions may have been lost along with the Nuragic civilization? In their enduring silence, the Nuraghe call us to contemplate human ambition, skill, and mystery. They are not merely relics of the past. They are questions cast in stone, inviting us to explore, to wonder, and to consider what other secrets the ancient world may still hold, quietly waiting atop Sardinia's hills and beyond. From the rugged hills of Sardinia, where the Nuraghe rise like silent sentinels over the landscape, we move now to the sun-scorched plains of northeastern Algeria, to a site that whispers of imperial ambition, meticulous planning, and the enduring mark of human civilization. Here lie the ruins of Timgad, a city once built with precision, its streets, forums, and monumental structures reflecting a level of urban organization that continues to fascinate scholars and visitors alike. Timgad was founded around 100 CE by the Roman Emperor Trajan, ostensibly as a military colony for veterans returning from campaigns in North Africa. Yet what remains today is far more than a military outpost. The city's layout is astonishingly precise, reflecting the principles of Roman urban planning. A perfect grid of intersecting streets, a central forum framed by temples and administrative buildings, and triumphal arches aligned with cardinal directions. From above, the city resembles a diagram of order imposed upon the chaos of the natural world, a testament to the Roman vision of civilization itself. Walking through the ruins, one cannot help but be struck by their geometric clarity. The Decumanus Maximus and Cardo Maximus intersect at right angles, guiding movement through the city in an almost ritualized manner. Public baths, basilicas, and markets emerge from the foundations, revealing a society deeply invested in both civic and social order. Yet despite this apparent rationality, questions linger. How could such precision have been achieved in a frontier region far from the empire's heart? How did the planners account for topography, water supply, and defensive needs while maintaining strict adherence to an idealized grid? Archaeological evidence suggests that Timgad was more than a military settlement. The presence of elaborate temples, monumental arches, and public spaces indicates a city designed for both practical and ceremonial life. One of the most iconic features, the Arch of Trajan, frames the approach to the forum with a combination of structural brilliance and symbolic authority, reminding all who entered that they were within a space governed by imperial order. The arch itself, standing nearly 12 meters tall, is constructed from massive stone blocks fitted with such precision that the joints seem almost invisible, a feat that continues to inspire admiration and inquiry. Yet Timgad holds mysteries beyond its architectural precision. The city was abandoned around the 7th century, likely due to a combination of economic decline, invasions, and environmental factors. Unlike many Roman cities, Timgad was not rebuilt, leaving a remarkably preserved layout that invites speculation. Why was this city, built with such care and planning, left to the elements while others continued to flourish? What cultural, political, or environmental forces contributed to its sudden disappearance from the historical record? Some scholars speculate that Timgad's design may encode more than urban order. The alignment of streets, the positioning of temples and public spaces, and even the orientation of buildings suggest a consciousness of celestial events, cardinal directions, and symbolic geometry. Could Timgad have served not only as a military and civic center, but also as a manifestation of cosmic order, reflecting Roman notions of harmony between human structures and the natural world? The scale and preservation of Timgad also provoke awe. Its thermal baths, aqueducts, and cisterns demonstrate advanced understanding of engineering, water management, and urban sustainability. Roads and streets, paved with large stones, were designed to withstand heavy use, while public spaces facilitated both civic and religious functions. The city was constructed to endure, yet the passage of time, shifting political power, and the encroachment of nature remind us that even the most deliberate human designs are vulnerable to history's unfolding. Speculative interpretations add another layer to Timgad's allure. Some suggest that the city was part of a broader network of Roman urban experimentation, testing principles of social organization, military strategy, and civic control in a frontier context. Others wonder whether the city's sudden abandonment hints at hidden forces, epidemics, climatic events, or conflicts, whose impact remains obscured in the historical record. And yet, standing among the ruins, one senses not disorder, but an enduring presence, a frozen testament to human ingenuity and ambition. The interplay between scale, precision, and impermanence is striking. Massive blocks of stone, perfectly aligned streets, and monumental arches contrast with the empty plazas and collapsed roofs, reminding us that the grandeur of human achievement is often measured against the relentless march of time. The ruins evoke questions about both the people who built Timgad and the forces that shaped its decline. How did planners coordinate labor, materials, and engineering expertise in a remote province? What social structures ensured compliance and cooperation among residents? And what caused a city so meticulously designed to be abandoned, leaving it a silent relic of Roman ambition? Timgad's enduring mystery is amplified by the sense of symmetry and order that pervades the ruins. From the forum to the baths, from the triumphal arch to the residential quarters, the city presents a coherent vision of urban life. Yet the lives of its inhabitants remain largely obscured. Who walked these streets, and what stories unfolded beneath the shadows of temples and colonnades? What rituals, celebrations, or conflicts were enacted here, now lost to time and dust? Visiting Timgad today, the silence is profound. The wind stirs dust across the forum, birds circle the broken arches, and the sun casts long shadows across perfectly aligned streets. The city, though abandoned, continues to speak, not in words, but in geometry, proportion, and the deliberate choices of its builders. Its enduring presence invites reflection on the interplay between human ambition, planning, and the inexorable forces of history. Timgad stands as a paradox, at once fully realized and yet incomplete in our understanding. Its streets, forums, and arches challenge us to consider the limits of human knowledge and the fragility of civilizations. How did this frontier city achieve such precision and scale? Why was it left to the elements, so well preserved yet silent? And what other secrets, perhaps hidden beneath the layers of earth and stone, might still reveal themselves to those who study its ruins? In the quiet majesty of Timgad, we confront a fundamental question of archaeology and history. What does it mean to leave a mark upon the world? The city endures, a testament to human vision and the mysteries that remain when ambition meets time. Its streets, aligned with care, its arches, standing in silent grandeur, and its plazas, now empty, challenge us to imagine the life and purpose of a civilization that once thrived, and yet, in some ways, continues to elude our understanding. From the orderly streets and monumental arches of Timgad, where Roman precision and imperial ambition carved a city into the Algerian plains, we now move northwest to the sun-dappled landscapes of Andalusia, Spain, to encounter a far older testament to human ingenuity, The Dolmen de Soto, a megalithic tomb whose silent stones have guarded secrets for more than 4,500 years. Nestled near the town of Trigueros in Huelva, the Dolmen de Soto stands as one of the most significant megalithic monuments in Iberia. At first glance, it is deceptively simple, a long, narrow corridor of massive stones leading to a central burial chamber, its passageway lined by upright slabs topped with enormous capstones. Yet simplicity belies the sophistication embedded in its design. The corridor stretches over 20 meters, creating a precise axial alignment that interacts with the sunlight in extraordinary ways, illuminating the inner chamber during the winter solstice in a spectacle that seems deliberately orchestrated by its ancient builders. The structure is constructed from enormous limestone slabs, some weighing several tons, carefully positioned without mortar, yet enduring for millennia. The precision with which the stones were shaped, aligned, and balanced suggests not only remarkable technical skill, but also an advanced understanding of geometry and celestial cycles. Walking through the corridor, one cannot help but feel a sense of ritual and purpose, as if the builders intended this passage to serve as a bridge between the earthly realm and the cosmic, a threshold where the living might commune symbolically with the dead. Dolmen de Soto is part of a broader tradition of megalithic architecture in southern Iberia, yet it stands out for its scale, alignment, and state of preservation. Excavations have revealed human remains, ceramic offerings, and stone tools, indicating that the site was used repeatedly over centuries for burial and ritual. The burials themselves suggest a community with complex social structures, capable of organizing labor, transporting massive stones, and maintaining ceremonial traditions over generations. But many questions remain. Who were the people who built this dolmen? What beliefs guided their architecture? And what did the corridor and chamber symbolize in the context of their worldview? The alignment of the dolmen is particularly intriguing. During the winter solstice, sunlight penetrates the corridor to illuminate the inner chamber with a golden glow, a phenomenon that likely required careful observation, measurement, and planning over years. Could this suggest that the builders possessed astronomical knowledge that allowed them to mark the passage of seasons and cycles of time with precision? Was the dolmen's alignment intended to symbolize the renewal of life, the rebirth of the sun, or the journey of the soul after death? Such questions highlight a dimension of knowledge and intention that survives only in stone, leaving modern observers to interpret its meaning. Inside the chamber, the air feels heavy with time. Each slab bears the subtle traces of human effort, smoothing, shaping, and careful placement that defy natural explanation. The central space, where multiple burials were interred, evokes both intimacy and grandeur, a place where the dead were honored, and possibly where the living gathered for ceremonies. Archaeologists have noted the presence of symbolic engravings, cup marks, and subtle grooves in the stones, hinting at practices or beliefs now lost. Were these markings decorative, functional, or coded with spiritual significance? We may never know. The scale of construction raises further questions about social organization and technical capability. Transporting stones weighing several tons without wheeled vehicles or modern machinery would have required a highly coordinated effort, knowledge of leverage, and collective labor. How did these communities mobilize such resources? What motivated them to invest so much effort into structures whose use was largely ceremonial or funerary rather than practical? And why did this tradition of megalithic building flourish in some regions and not others, leaving behind isolated wonders like the Dolmen de Soto? Some researchers speculate on symbolic or cosmological purposes. The corridor's axial alignment, the orientation of the chamber, and the patterning of stones suggest an understanding of the solar cycle and perhaps even lunar or stellar movements. Could the dolmen have served as a calendar, a ritual observatory, or a marker of sacred time. Others propose that the repeated use of the site for burials points to an early form of ancestor worship, where the dead were honored to maintain social cohesion and continuity. These theories, while plausible, remain speculative, and the monument's true meaning continues to elude definitive interpretation. Dolmen de Soto also invites reflection on endurance and impermanence. Unlike cities that rise and fall, or towers that collapse over centuries, these megaliths have weathered millennia with remarkable resilience. Their survival challenges our assumptions about prehistoric societies and the permanence of human intention. Here, the architecture itself becomes a message across time, a structure built with care, precision, and reverence, asking each visitor to pause and consider the minds, hands, and beliefs that shaped it. As one moves through the corridor, the mind is drawn to questions that remain unresolved. What daily lives unfolded around this dolmen? How did its construction affect the surrounding landscape, the community, and subsequent generations? What ceremonies were conducted within its walls, and what mysteries have been lost to time, buried alongside the dead? The stones themselves offer no answers, only presence, a silent witness to human ambition, devotion, and curiosity. In standing among the Dolmen de Soto, we confront the profound intersection of human ingenuity and mystery. The precise placement of stones, the alignment with celestial events, and the sheer scale of the corridor and chamber speak to a society capable of remarkable architectural achievement. Yet the monument does not yield its secrets easily. It challenges us to imagine the intentions, beliefs, and knowledge of a culture that existed more than 4,000 years ago, leaving behind a tangible yet enigmatic imprint of their world. The Dolmen de Soto, like other ancient structures scattered across the globe, reminds us that human history is layered with questions as much as with answers. Its stones endure, weathered yet resilient, standing as a bridge between the past and the present, inviting us to wonder what motivated its builders, what they understood about the world around them, and what remains hidden in the spaces between the slabs, waiting to be discovered. From the sunlit megaliths of Dolmen de Soto, where prehistoric communities aligned stone corridors with the movements of the sun, we turn now to the fertile coastal valleys of Peru, to a city that predates even the great civilizations of the Americas. Nestled in the Soup Valley, Caral is considered one of the oldest urban centers in the Western Hemisphere, a city of monumental pyramids, plazas, and residential complexes that has endured more than 5,000 years of silence and sediment. Caral emerges from the desert landscape as an intricate tapestry of human ambition. Its pyramids rise gently from the valley floor, broad platforms of earth and stone carefully constructed to dominate the surrounding terrain. The largest pyramid, often referred to as the Great Pyramid of Caral, stretches nearly 60 meters in height, with terraced levels that echo the contours of the hills behind it. Unlike the stone edifices of later Andean civilizations, Caral's structures are primarily built of sun-dried bricks, shaped with precision and fitted to form durable platforms, ceremonial centers, and residential compounds. The city, sprawling across some 150 acres, reveals a sophisticated urban vision that continues to puzzle archaeologists and historians alike. Walking among the ruins, one is struck by the scale and deliberation of the planning. The city is arranged in a series of plazas and pyramids connected by broad avenues, suggesting not only functional organization, but symbolic intent. Circular sunken plazas appear alongside rectangular pyramids, forming spatial relationships that hint at ritualistic or ceremonial use. Could these plazas have hosted gatherings, musical performances, or communal rites? Excavations have revealed evidence of reed flutes, gourds, and other instruments, suggesting that music may have been an integral part of Caral's public life, a civilization that harmonized architecture, landscape, and human activity in ways that remain elusive to our modern understanding. The construction of Caral predates the invention of ceramics in the region, and there is no evidence of defensive walls or weaponry. Yet the city flourished as a hub of complex social organization, trade, and knowledge. This challenges traditional assumptions about urban development, which often equate complexity with militarization or written records. How could a society achieve such architectural sophistication, organize labor on a massive scale, and sustain social cohesion without the tools we usually associate with advanced civilization? Caral forces us to reconsider the foundations of human achievement. Archaeologists have noted the presence of terraces and irrigation canals, suggesting a keen understanding of agriculture and environmental management. The Soup Valley's arid climate would have posed serious challenges, yet Caral's inhabitants harnessed the land to support a sizable population. The city's design reflects a delicate balance between human ingenuity and environmental adaptation, an interplay between civilization and desert that underscores the vision of its builders. But why did this early urban center arise here, in apparent isolation from other contemporary societies? And how did knowledge, construction techniques, and social organization emerge so early in the Americas? Some researchers propose that Caral's layout may hold cosmological significance. The orientation of pyramids and plazas, the alignment of avenues with surrounding mountains, and the apparent attention to light and shadow suggest that the city's planners considered celestial events in their designs. Could the rise of the sun and the position of stars have guided the placement of ceremonial platforms and public spaces? Did the builders of Caral intend for the city itself to serve as a monument to cosmic order, embedding spiritual knowledge into its very foundations? While such interpretations remain speculative, the careful arrangement of structures leaves little doubt that symbolic thought played a central role in the city's creation. Caral's discovery in the late 20th century revealed another astonishing element. Its society achieved remarkable cultural sophistication without many of the hallmarks of later civilizations. There are no fortifications, no hieroglyphs, and no evidence of warfare. Yet the city exhibits hierarchical organization, monumental architecture, and signs of long-distance trade, including the presence of spondylus shells from the coast hundreds of kilometers away. This paradox, complexity without apparent militarism, challenges conventional models of urban evolution and hints at alternative pathways to societal advancement. The monuments themselves invite contemplation. Broad staircases lead to ceremonial platforms. Plazas are flanked by rectangular and circular structures, and carefully shaped sun-dried bricks form terraces that have withstood millennia of earthquakes and erosion. Each feature appears deliberate, yet the full purpose of the spaces is shrouded in mystery. Were the pyramids primarily religious centers, administrative hubs, or communal symbols? Were the plazas spaces for commerce, ritual, or social cohesion? And how much of Caral's culture, ritual, and knowledge has been irretrievably lost to time? Standing amidst the ruins, one senses both intimacy and grandeur. The city is silent, yet the arrangement of its spaces evokes the pulse of life that must have once flowed through its streets, plazas, and ceremonial centers. The absence of defensive walls and weaponry, the prominence of communal spaces, and the careful orientation of structures all point to a society deeply invested in harmony, ritual, and human connection. And yet, for all we have learned from excavations, the city retains a profound mystery. Caral challenges modern perceptions of time, history, and human capability. Its pyramids, plazas, and avenues demonstrate a civilization that predates the pyramids of Egypt and yet shares with them an understanding of monumental scale, social organization, and symbolic architecture. It asks us to reconsider what it means to be advanced, to build, and to plan on a scale that transcends generations. How much of this knowledge was encoded in rituals, music, and social practice, rather than written records? What remains hidden beneath the desert sands, waiting to reveal itself to careful study or serendipitous discovery. In its enduring silence, Caral continues to speak across millennia. Its terraces, plazas, and pyramids invite reflection on human creativity, ambition, and mystery. As we walk its avenues today, we are compelled to imagine the lives, beliefs, and knowledge of those who shaped this ancient city. And in that imagination, we encounter the central question that Caral poses to every visitor and scholar alike. How could a civilization so sophisticated, so harmoniously integrated with its environment, emerge in apparent isolation, leaving behind structures that endure as both monuments and mysteries?